At Busch Stadium in St. Louis. Many of you will be watching the Eastern leading Cubs and the Cardinals, second of their three-game series. The Cubs beat the Cardinals last night. And some of you will be focusing in on Atlanta Fulton County Stadium, where the Western leading Giants will play the Braves. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Marv Albert, and we welcome you to the start of our baseball day here on NBC. The major story this week, the stunning news concerning the retirement of one of the game's premier players, Mike Schmidt of the Phillies. We'll be talking about it with Mike in just a moment. There is one game already underway at this hour in the second at Fenway. Boston leads Toronto 2-1. It's Boddicker going against Steve. In games of note last night, it was Junior Felix of the Toronto Blue Jays who came up with a rare inside the park grand slam home run. This with 2 out in the ninth. The Blue Jays beat the Red Sox 7-2. This the first inside the park home run in Boston since 1973, to the delight of an exhausted Junior Felix. Baltimore rookie Bob Malacky allowed only 2 hits over 8 1/3 as the surprising first-place Orioles beat the Tigers 4-1. The Birds now 3 games in front. Another injury scare for Oakland with American League batting leader Carney Lansford straining his left hamstring. His playing status uncertain as the A's lost to the Indians 5-3. In the NL West, Kevin Mitchell continued his onslaught for the first-place Giants. 2 more home runs, 17 homers, 51 RBIs for Mitchell as the Giants beat the Braves 7-6. Rick Russell won his 10th. Eric Davis became the first Cincinnati player to hit for the cycle in 30 years. He also knocked in 6 runs. The Reds over the Padres 9-4. Late dramatics for the Mets last night. Dave Magadan with his 2-run home run in the 11th, giving the Mets a 3-2 victory over the Pirates. The Mets back from a rugged trip to the West Coast. And Mark Langston with another strong outing for Montreal. 9 strikeouts in 8 innings, although not involved in the decision. In 13, the Expos beat the Phillies 2-1. The Phils, who have lost 9 games in a row, made a deal with San Diego. Late last night, the Padres sent outfielder first baseman John Kruk, third baseman Randy Reddy to Philly for Chris James, who had taken over for Mike Schmidt at third. Kruk has been disappointing, plagued the past year and a half by a series of injuries. All this triggered by the retirement of Mike Schmidt earlier this week. When we come back, a talk with the future Hall of Famer.
Swing a long drive! There it is! Number 500! The career 500th home run for Michael Jack Schmidt!
Week, the surprising retirement announcement by Mike Schmidt of the Philadelphia Phillies, a certain Hall of Famer, perhaps the best everyday player of the last 15 years, and a man that many baseball people feel is the greatest third baseman of all time. But after struggling the past month, going 2 for his last 41, hitting only .203, last Monday in San Diego, he made his announcement.
Some 18 years ago, I left Dayton, Ohio with 2 very bad knees, and a dream to become a Major League Baseball player. I thank God that the dream came true.
An emotional moment for Mike Schmidt before his teammates, before the media. He was embarrassed by his performance in this, his 17th season, a career that has produced 548 home runs for 7th on the all-time list. He's had 11 seasons with 35 or more homers. Only Babe Ruth had more. 3-time most valuable player, World Series MVP 1980, and 10 Golden Gloves. He also excelled in the field, but Michael will turn 40 in September, was hard hit by injuries last season and felt he just could not do it anymore. And Mike Schmidt has joined us from Veterans Stadium in Philadelphia, where he's not playing tonight, should be pointed out. Mike has not rescinded the retirement. I know you're throwing out the first ball tonight. Is that correct?
That's right, Marv. I'm looking forward to it. This is I guess my third and last hurdle with this retirement thing, saying goodbye to the fans.
Well, as one who has done quite a bit of television work, you're familiar with the workings of the media and perception of events. Now, as a player, you will always consider to be unemotional, overcool. Now, ironically, with that tearful farewell seen everywhere, you'll be remembered for excessive emotion. What set off that emotion last Monday?
Well, I've always said I only seem to cry at funerals, weddings, and now I know I cry at retirements. And I don't know. I just got to a point in my statement where I couldn't talk anymore, and it's that lump you get in your throat, and I guess that's emotion that had been built up about baseball for some 16 years, all coming out at one time.
Mike, I'm told there was a moment when you began thinking seriously about quitting. It was May 24th against the LA Dodgers. A ball was hit by Mike Marshall that went right by you, was scored a double, but the telling point was you felt that it should have been an error.
Well, Marv, you know, throughout the whole season, and maybe a little bit of last year, I had sensed a decline in my defensive game. And every now and then I would get a ball where I felt I should make the play, and I used to make the play all the time. And I don't know whether embarrassment's the right word, probably disappointment. And it makes you kind of think about your age and whether or not you are starting to lose it. And the minute you start thinking about losing it and having to fight that feeling of losing it, I think that's the beginning of the end for everyone. And some people don't realize it, but I did.
Mike, there was a time that you went through a torrid love-hate relationship with the fans of Philadelphia. Despite all your achievements, you heard the boos. You did lash back from time to time. Now, this week's Philadelphia Daily News brought back a strong statement of yours from some 4 years ago. You said, "I guarantee over my career I would have accomplished more without the periods when I tried so hard to do it for these people. Not because I cared so much. It was more, I'll show them. I'll show these people." As you look back now, were you overly sensitive, perhaps?
Oh, no question. You know, that's just me. A lot of times I couldn't understand why they wanted so much from me on a daily basis. I was unable to give it to them, and hadn't I had that desire to show them all the time, I probably would have been a much more relaxed player and maybe accomplished more. But now that it's over and I look back, I don't see how I could have done much better. I think the demands of the Philadelphia fans, day in and day out, in addition to my own desire to, you know, to excel, helped to push me to the level that I am now, or at least the level that I was the other day when I retired. And I can't tell you how much warmth and feelings and love and just what a great experience this last 3 or 4 days have been in Philadelphia.
Mike, 10 seconds or less. If you were with a contending team or if the Phillies were a better ball club, would you be playing now?
Possibility. That's a hypothetical. I just didn't think that they could carry a player that was on the decline like I was right now. They needed to get the Jordans and the James in the lineups and move on to a new era.
All right, Mike, congratulations on what has been a truly remarkable career, and we appreciate your coming out to the ballpark for us a bit on the early side.
All right, Marv, I'll be watching you every Saturday now.
And that's a promo. We'll take it. Okay. Mike Schmidt of the Philadelphia Phillies will be back in a moment. Because of the news developments out of China, many of you will be seeing the Cubs and the Cardinals. Some of you will be watching the Giants and the Braves. I'm Marv Albert in New York. We'll be going to the ballpark shortly, but first, back to Maria Shriver with yet another news up.
Big Sur Waterbeds has one very important...
Webster had a word for it, as he usually does, and the word rival. One of two or more striving to reach or obtain something that only one can possess. That sums up the sulfuric bubbling between the Brooklyn Dodgers and the New York Giants, and the immortality of Bobby Thompson's home run. Transplanted, it still flourishes between San Francisco and Los Angeles. New Englanders against the world, especially against the lordly pinstripes worn by the New York Yankees. And that fateful fall afternoon in crackling sunshine and shadow, and the memory of Bucky Dent that will live forever in the land of the bean and the cod. And this tale of two cities in the Midwest, Chicago and St. Louis, producing more than its share of heroes like Alexander and Hornsby and Musial. And Banks, the forever Cub. And Lou Brock, who felt the heat from either side of the coin. And Bruce Sutter, who saw what it was like in this bitter rivalry as the Cy Young winner and as a Cardinal striving to the World's Championship. And that fateful afternoon as a Cardinal against the Cubs in the quintessential game in 1984, when the Cubs, riding on the swings of Ryne Sandberg, won the East. And how sweet it was for the Cubs to do it against, of all people, the Cardinals. And the rivalry continues to this day. And it's our day, the Cubs and the Cardinals, on the NBC Game of the Week.
the National Broadcasting Company. Now in its 7th decade of bringing you baseball's memories. Baseball's milestones. Baseball's magical moments. And baseball's miracles. NBC Sports proudly presents the Major League Baseball Game of the Week.
I'm Scully, along with Tom Seaver. Welcome to Busch Stadium in St. Louis. In this year of the big surprise, the surprise is certainly centered here, called the Chicago Cubs. The Cubs have been like a ride in Disneyland. They won 7 straight. They lost 8 out of 9. Then they won 8 out of 11, only to lose 5 in a row. And coming into today's game, they've won 12 out of 15. The Cubs atop the heap in the National League East. The St. Louis Cardinals trail them by 5. How in the world is Chicago doing it, especially without Andre Dawson? Don Zimmer maybe is a magician. We'll find out and go to Tom.
Thank you, Vinny. Don Zimmer, the manager of the Chicago Cubs. We saw you a couple of weeks ago, and you had just lost all of your outfield. A lot of people in baseball are now surprised you're ahead of this National League East Division, Don.
I guess I am too, Tom. Actually, when we lost the 3 outfielders, we did turn right around and lose 5 straight. And then we got McClendon up from the minor leagues. On the 6th day after we lose 5 straight, he hit a 3-run homer, and that kind of gave us a spark to where we won the next 5 games, and we just been hanging in there.
And your pitching has been terrific too.
Well, I think that's been the whole thing. Our pitching staff, all 10 of them, have done a great job, kept us just about in every game. And if you stay close, there's a chance you might eke out a run here and there, and that's what we do.
You know, losing a guy like Andre Dawson, the power that he is in offensively and defensively in lineup, has to be devastating. What's his condition, and when can we expect him to see him back in the lineup?
Well, he's worked hard, and hopefully he might be back within 10 days to 2 weeks. But, you know, he's a big man in our lineup. He's a big man in anybody's lineup. Sure. But this club has continued to find a way to win ball games, and it's just a great thing that we've done that until we get him back.
A lot of people around here can't say enough about your switch-hitting catcher, Damon Berryhill. They say he's just been fantastic for you.
Well, I think we made a good move when we sent him to into the minor leagues on the rehab. And when he come back, he wasn't hitting rehab, but every time he got a hit, it was a big one. And this guy's just a good, fine catcher. He throws as well as anybody in the league, and he's just done a great job for us.
Tim, congratulations. Keep up the good work.
Thank you, Tom.
All right, Vin, that's the word on the Chicago Cubs.
Thank you, fellas. Meanwhile, the St. Louis story can best be summed up by a quote from Whitey Herzog, who said, "I have never in all my years had a team play as badly as this team is playing. That is to say, what it has accomplished and what it is capable of accomplishing." We'll get to the starting lineups and of all the pregame stats and stories, all coming up right after this.
The Game of the Week is brought to you by Mitsubishi, bringing you the new Eclipse Sports Coupe. See it at your Mitsubishi dealer. By Budweiser, Beechwood Aged for that clean, crisp taste. This Bud's for you. By AT&T, the right choice. And by Die Hard, America's most trusted replacement battery. Die Hard, with more power when you need it most. And now, here's today's Die Hard starting lineup.
For the visiting Chicago Cubs atop the heap in the East, Doug DeCenzo in center field and Mitch Webster in left, Ryan Sandberg at second base, and Mark Grace at first. Damon Berryhill will go behind the plate. Dwight Smith in right field. Curtis Wilkerson at third base. Sean Dunston, the shortstop. Mike Bielicki, the pitcher. The Cubs have beaten the Cardinals all 3 times. Kenny Hill with a record of 2-4 in his first career appearance against the Cubs, trying to stop the bleeding. The Cardinals with a 5-game losing streak. And Kenny Hill figures to have his hands full.
And Vinny Kenny was a guy that went to spring training not even expected to make the club. Whitey Herzog said, if one of my pitchers goes down during the season, and then I'll think about bringing Kenny Hill up and putting him in the rotation. Well, here's a young fellow that's come along. He's only 23 years old. Come along and been right in that starting rotation for Whitey Herzog at 2-4, and his record really should be much better than that. 7 out of his 9 starts, he's gone at least 7 innings. We saw him earlier this year on an NBC game against the Dodgers. He pitched very well. He's a good athlete. He swings the bat very well. He feels his position very well. And talking to Mike Rourke, the pitching coach for the St. Louis Cardinals, he's learning every time he goes out there, and he's learning from his mistakes. He'll still make those youthful mistakes, but he is learning.
He is also learning about what happens when you are pitching well for a ball club that is scratching, trying to get runs. In the 4 games that Ken Hill has lost, Whitey Herzog has seen the youngster given a total of 6 runs in the 4 defeats. He was recalled April the 19th, and he was originally acquired in a trade with the Detroit Tigers. And when he came up, he had a burst of brilliance. He had 24 consecutive scoreless innings. And at 23 years old, he's the youngest member of the Cardinal roster, and he certainly figures to be here a while.
Now, talking about that he is having a good year with a 2.38 ERA. And you look at some of the guys that he has a better earned run average than. Better than Clemens, better than Stewart of the Oakland A's, better than Hershiser, and before last night he had a better ERA than Dwight Gooden. Dwight Gooden, with his performance last night in New York, went under him. But those are the kind of people that he has been pitching with. Only 1 home run has he given up all year long, and that was at Cincinnati to Chris Sabo. He's not given up a home run here, and only 1 all year long in 64 in the 3rd innings pitched.
Let's take a look at the Cardinals with the leather now before the Cubs come up with the bats.
For the Cardinals, of course, in the outfield, Vince Coleman. In left field, Willie McGee. In center, Tom Brunowski in right field. Terry Pendleton at 3rd, Ozzie Smith. At short, the Wizard, Jose Oquendo at 2nd, Pete Guerrero at 1st, and Tony Pena behind the plate.
So here come the Cubs, who at one stage this year lost all 3 starting outfielders. They've gotten 1 of the 3 back. That's Mitch Webster. So Doug DeCenzo starting his 20th straight game in center field since called up from Iowa. DeCenzo, a switch hitter. And if you like switch hitters, you will have your fill of them today. There are 9 in the game. 4 switch hitters for the Cubs. A strike, and we're underway. DeCenzo, Webster, and Sandberg. By the way, when the Cubs lost Dawson, Walton, and Webster, they still managed to win 10 out of 12. So it has been a remarkable performance by Don Zimmer's crew in seeing the Cubs at first place through games of June the 2nd. That's the latest they've been atop the heap since the 15th of June in 1985. DeCenzo as a leadoff man, not bringing any muscle to the plate. He has 1 extra base hit, a double, and he lifts 1 to Vince Coleman in left field. 1 away.
Talking to Zimmer yesterday, Vinny, about Andre Dawson. Dawson is not running yet. I saw him throwing against the outfield wall yesterday in left field. To give his arm a workout like a pitcher coming off a sore arm. He's out there throwing against the wall in left field, but he is hitting off of a tee and is expected to take some live batting practice pretty soon. But he was down in the cage hitting off the tee, getting the muscles back in order. He's walking. It doesn't look like he's had an operation. Everything seems to be healthy. And actually, they operated on the healthy knee, the best of the 2 knees that he does have.
Mitch Webster, and the count 1 ball and no strikes. Ball 2, 2-0. Webster running very well this year. He's 7 out of 8 in stolen bases. Direct contrast to last year when he stole only 1 out of 6. A little late on that pitch, and the count 2-1. Webster puts a little heat on the infield. They have to bring up the corners, Pendleton and Guerrero. He's always a threat to bunt. He has 3 bunt singles and a half a dozen infield hits this year. 3-1 the count to Mitch Webster.
This Cardinal defense, Vinny, is one that led the National League fielding the last 5 years, and they are in actually second place with just a percentage point behind the Phils and the Giants. Their fielding percentage as a team is .981. The Phils and the Giants are fielding at a .983. So one thing that they're doing well this year is fielding again.
3-2 the count of Mitch Webster. Ground ball to the left side to Ozzie Smith. That's a graveyard for the hitters. 2 down. Ozzie perhaps not hitting as much as he would like, and his shortage has been as a left-handed batter. He's carrying plenty on the right side. He's hitting over 300. He has made for him an inordinate amount of errors, 7. And of course Smitty with 7 and Guerrero leading at his position with 8 errors. Piece of paper out on the field, and here is Ryne Sandberg. Sandberg in the top 10 in the league in hits, multi-hit games. He needs 24 games to qualify as the all-time leader in fielding percentage by a second baseman. He has won 6 straight Gold Gloves. Bill Mazeroski won 5 straight and 8 in his brilliant career, and Frank White of Kansas City has 8. 1 ball and no strikes. 2 down, first inning. We're just starting, so pull up a chair and spend part of Saturday with us. Sandberg pops it foul behind the plate. A late start for Pena. Pendleton comes down to help him out. So the Cubs go quietly in the first inning. At the end of half an inning, Chicago nothing. St. Louis coming up. The Cardinals will have Vince Coleman in left, Willie McGee in center, Ozzie Smith at short, Pete Guerrero at first, Terry Pendleton at third, Tom Brunansky in right, Jose Aquindo at second, Tony Pena behind the plate, Ken Hill on the mound, and trying to stop that lineup, Mike Balecki. He is 4-2. No record this year against the Cardinals. Beat them once last year, and he has a shutout against San Diego. And look at that earned run average, 1.6.
It'll be fun to watch him work, but he's second best earned run average in the league. Never seen him throw before. Talking to the Rick Sutcliffe and some of the other Cubs, he has a good fastball, 2 kinds of fastballs, a split finger and a slider, and has come a long way.
Prior to this year, he was 7 games under 500 in his career and an earned run average over 4. So he's really done a turnabout, and he has to hurry to beat Coleman on that close play. So Vince Coleman nipped at first base. Take another look. That's a tough one.
Coleman is a guy that has 34 infield hits last year, and that is just about as close as you're going to get. He's on a pace this year for getting 50 infield hits, and yes, beat him.
The one thing he did was hitting the inside of the bag. If Balecki had made a mistake and tried to step on the bag itself, we would have had cross legs and perhaps an injury. But he hit the inside, gave the runner the top of the bag, and just did beat him. Willie McGee at the plate. McGee 9th all-time Cardinal history with triples, but as he stands at the plate right now, he is struggling. McGee hitting only .221, so it ain't funny, and hitting .211 from this side of the plate. Milt Thompson came out of the lineup hitting .298, and immediately now there are people saying, wait a minute, they played better with Milt Thompson. Maybe McGee is trade bait, and he is.
You heard his name bannered around a lot of places.
A lot of places. 1 ball and 2 strikes. Change hit down the left field line, and a rabbit is loose. Chasing it is Mitch Webster, and McGee into second with a double. He got a high changeup and drove a nail through it. So with Willie McGee at second and 1 out, Ozzie Smith coming up. We take another look at the pitch in McGee.
One of the things that Dick Pohl, the pitching coach of the Chicago Cubs, has just harped on Mike Balecki. get the ball down all the time. Get the ball down, get it down, get it down. It's one of the things that has made him a successful pitcher. That pitch, he just got up and out over the plate.
In the dirt to Ozzie, 1 ball and no strikes. Ozzie Smith with that average, but what a tremendous difference of 70 points when he switches. He's a 300 hitter from the other side of the plate. One ball, no strikes. In there at the knees, 1-1. Big John McSherry is the plate umpire. Jerry Crawford, Joe West, and Charlie Williams working the lines. Interesting that the Cardinals, who led the National League in runs in '85, second in runs in '87, and they are 9th in runs scored so far this year. 1-1. Ground foul outside of first. Ozzie checking his bat, and the count 1-2. One of the many surprises coming into a Cardinal-Cubs series this year, not only the standings where the Cubs are atop the heap and the Cardinals are 5 games back, but I don't think anyone in the world would have imagined that, among other things at this stage, the Cubs have more stolen bases than the Cardinals. And I mean by a dozen. That just didn't figure.
Cardinals, of course, last year stole 234 bases, almost twice as many as the Cubs. The Cubs had 120. Coming in here, St. Louis has 46 stolen bases. The Cubs have 58. It is incredible, something you would never think of.
2 balls and 2 strikes, the count to Ozzie Smith. The other thing that is driving Whitey Herzog up a wall, the fact the Cardinals lead in a very unenviable department. They have grounded into the most double plays in the National League, and that will get any manager talking to himself. 2-2. Popped in the air, foul off third. Wilkerson trying to run it down and get under it. He can't get it. He had to take his eye off the ball for a split second to see just where he was in relation to the railing, and he never had a chance. So it's still 2 balls and 2 strikes.
You know, Vivian, I thought about grounding into double plays, and you say, how in the world can the St. Louis Cardinals ground into 45 double plays? And one of Whitey's complaints is that they're not running enough. They will not run, and the more they run, the more fastballs they're going to get to hit. And Herzog has said that in the first 40 games, he says, I bet you I put the hit and run on 85 times to get these guys, to try to get them moving and make something happen.
Ground ball backer first, backhanded by Mark. Grace takes it to the bag, and on the play, Willie McGee takes third. So 2 down, the Cardinals 90 feet away from a run, and Pedro Guerrero, who has been picking them up, coming up. Guerrero with a half a dozen home runs and 36 runs batted in. Guerrero, a solid hitter, and has been a solid hitter for several years. It's not as if he's just having a hot year. Over the last 10 years, his batting average is .307. That would rank him 3rd among all active players, though he can hit. What's he doing against the Cubs? He is providing a sizable threat, because with men in scoring position, he's hitting just under .380. He lives to hit. However, he's struggling with the glove, so that they have nicknamed him here in St. Louis, Oh Guerrero. He's committed 8 errors at first, but he'll make them cheer with that bat. 1 ball, 1 strike. Mike Balecki will be 30 years old in July, from Baltimore, another surprising city. He was acquired by the Cubs from Pittsburgh and has proven to be quite a find. So Guerrero trying to pick up McGee from 3rd. 2 out, 1st inning, no score. The Cubs and Cardinals are at it again. 2-1.
This is a big ballpark, Vinny. Very few home runs, and Guerrero, who has 6 home runs, only 1 of them here at Busch Stadium. Another thing that Whitey was complaining about, that this is not a good home run park for Pete Guerrero.
The team has only 20 home runs. They're right at the bottom. Off speed, fouled away, off to the right, out of play. When you start talking about home runs in Busch Stadium, that gives you an idea just how tough it is. The easiest ballpark in the majors since 1984, the place where the balls have been jumping out, Tiger Stadium and San Diego Stadium. And that surprised you because I'm sure a lot of folks thought Wrigley Field. 2-2 the count to Pete Guerrero. And that's whacked into left center, and it's on the rug and going to the wall. Guerrero on his way with a stand-up double, and the Cardinals lead 1-0. Boy, can he hit.
He can hit, even with 2 strikes. A good hitter. Mark of a good hitter is getting a mistake and hitting it hard, not putting it back on the screen or not hitting it in foul territory. One of the things you want Bilecki to do, at least Dick Pole, his pitching coach, is get the ball down, and there's a pitch right about waist high.
Aren't you a little surprised that they would pitch to him, really? I mean, throw him a strike?
Not at all with a switch hitter on deck. I think it initially first up the top part of the game, Benny, here in the first inning, go after him, go get him. This isn't the 7th, 8th, or 9th inning. Indeed, Guerrero may be the guy that you don't let beat you in the first 3 innings, but don't give a club an opportunity to have a big inning. Go right after him, especially with a couple of outs.
So they pitched to him and they got a run.
That's what he did. He just made a mistake, and Pete made him pay for it.
In there, and the count 1 ball and 1 strike. Pendleton is struggling, hitting only .236. Terry has had his share of physical problems. Third on the club, however, with 21 runs batted in. 1-0 St. Louis in the first inning. They're trying to beat the Cubs for the first time this year. Here's a high change. You know, according to the schedule, after this series today and tomorrow, the Cubs go home. They have an 8-game homestand, beginning with the New York Mets. And the Cubs are in a stretch. They will play 14 straight against the Mets and Cardinals. So at the end of those 14, we'll have a much better idea about the credentials of the '89 Cubs. That's hit in the air and down in the corner, and Webster going back to the track, watching it go. Gone. Home run. In his last 6 starts, the most runs he allowed in any game was 4 against Cincinnati, and he has given up 3 in the first inning today. 2 doubles and a home run. 3-0 St. Louis. 1-0 to Tom Brunansky, and he pops it foul off to the left of the plate. Berryhill along with Wilkerson to the dugout, and they both go down in there. Standing room only. They're okay.
We talked about it before, Benny. The problem where Bilecki will get in trouble is up in the strike zone, and you can see Guerrero's pitch was just about waist high. That pitch to Pendleton, just about waist high. One of the things a pitcher has to do is get the feeling you're throwing the ball from top to bottom, not back to front. There's a pitch up in the strike zone again. And we said it before, Dick Pole gets on Bilecki about getting the ball down in the strike zone. Every time he's gotten it up here, the ball has been hit hard.
And the first hit was that high change to Willie McGee. And it is 3-0 Cardinals in the first inning. 2 balls and 2 strikes. No swings as Jerry Crawford umpiring at first. Brunansky, one of 5 players with 20 home runs each of the last 7 years. So he always commands respect, although he's hitting only .224. Popped it up on the right side. Sandberg and Grace, it'll be the Gold Glove. 3 runs, 3 hits, 2 doubles, and the home run. And the Cardinals lead the Cubs 3-0. see why as he hit the first pitch into right field for a base hit. And that'll bring up the switch hitting catcher, Damon Berryhill. To see a switch hitting catcher playing in St. Louis, you have to think of Teddy Simmons. And Berryhill doing a great job, hitting .293. Ball one. The Cubs would not appear to have too much firepower when you realize the top home run hitter in the lineup has 4, Ryne Sandberg. Andre Dawson was leading the club. He's been out for over 3 weeks, and he's still leading the club in home runs with 5. 1-0. And that's hit in the air to left field. Coleman started back, now corrects. 1 away.
You know, if you're in a Cub fan, there's Andre Dawson in the Chicago dugout. If you're a Cub fan or follow the Cubs, the club that they have, the lineup they have today, compared to last year about this time, there's only 2 players in the lineup because of injuries, or like in Andre Dawson's case, or because of a lineup change from Don Zimmer, that were in the lineup last year at this time. Sandberg and Dunston. Everybody else, new faces, lots of kids. Mitch Webster in a trade. The Senzone Smith coming up from the minor leagues. Grace didn't get into the lineup until about the middle of the season, first third of the season last year. It's a different look Chicago Cub team.
It is a club a little lighter in the wallet as well when you realize the money that was saved in recent deals. They've saved about $5 million with players leaving since 1986. Hit to left and deep. Coleman will flag it and drop it. And there are runners at first and second. Vince Coleman was not sure as that ball took off on him. Appeared to backhand it and drop it, and he will draw an error.
You know, he misjudged the ball that Berryhill hit. It was high enough for him to get under it. With the great speed that he has, he catches up to this ball hit by Smith. But sometimes running on that AstroTurf, because it's such a hard surface, if you don't stay on your toes and land on your heels, all of a sudden that ball will be bouncing around like popcorn in front of your eyes. Coleman picks up his 3rd error of the year.
So now Curtis Wilkerson represents the tying run with 2 on and 1 out in the second inning. Cardinals 3, Cubs nothing. Wilkerson, yet another switch hitter, the 4th in the Cub lineup, hitting .237. He has hit better from this side of the plate, almost .270. No balls, 1 strike. Fastball sailed, 1-1 to count to Curtis Wilkerson, playing over Vance Law today. One and 1 to count. Way out in front of an off-speed pitch. Wilkerson has 1 home run. He hit it against a very, very good pitcher, Mark Davis of San Diego. He hit it in Chicago. (3-0) in favor of St. Louis. Top of the second inning. 2 on, 1 out. In the dirt. 2-2.
You know, the thing about Hill and 2 of his wins, the 2 wins that he has, I think he won 12-0 and then a 5-3 game. He got 17 runs in those 2 starts. In his 7 other starts, the Cardinals have given him 12 runs in 7 games. So his ERA is more indicative of how he is pitched rather than his 2-4 1-loss record.
2 balls and 2 strikes to Curtis Wilkerson. And he was way out in front of that one. So Wilkerson, over-eager, over-anxious, pays the bill. And the batter now will be Sean Dunston. Dunston, a little bit of a changed hitter, at least he's trying to be. He has 17 walks this year. He has walked almost as many times as he struck out. Last year, it was somewhat shocking with 16 walks and over 100 strikeouts. They're going to check Swing, says Jerry Crawford, and the count 0-1. The dreaded half swing.
You know, he had 16 base on balls last year. Like you say, 8 of them were intentional. So he walked 8 times, 575 bats on this. It's almost impossible to do.
0-1 the count. Fastball chopped foul outside of third. The old expression about he's a Bible hitter, thou shalt not pass. Anything in the neighborhood, Sean's going to give it a rip.
It was fun on the bench in the Chicago dugout for the game, talking about the players in the 70s. Did they have any players like Wade Boggs? Did they have any players that hit 360? Did they have any good offensive players? He wants to know, are they better then than they are today? Anybody? I said, what about Rod Carew, Joe Morgan, Pete Rose? Yeah, well. He kept asking and talking and who and what and when and where. He's very interested in the older players.
1 ball and 2 strikes to Sean Dunston. He had more than 1 hit in a game for the first time on the 22nd of May, more than 1 RBI in a game on the 23rd. And Zimmer feels that maybe he's starting to come around, but that 185 average doesn't get it. Fastball, and he hit it into left field, base hit. Mark Grace being waved in. Coleman's throw to the plate. He scores. And going down to third is Dwight Smith. Sean Dunston rides a fastball into left field for a base hit and a run batted in. When the throw got away from Tony Pena, Dwight Smith, who had reached on the base hit, took the extra base.
Coleman had 14 assists last year. He has no assists so far this year. You wonder when he is going to get his first assist, but good aggressive base running by the Cubs, and that certainly comes from Don Zimmer.
An error charged to Tony Pena for letting the throw get away. And here's Mike Bilecki. Ball 1. Bilecki has 1 hit this year, and he has struck out half the time. That makes him sound very much like a pitcher. 50% strikeout.
You don't want to pitch around this guy. Is that what you're trying to tell me?
Yeah, you don't pitch around. 1-0. And fisted right to Guerrero. He was jammed, and that's it. 1 run, 2 hits, an error, 2 left, and at the end of an inning and a half, Cardinals 3, Cubs 1. In the second inning, 3-1 in favor of St. Louis. Jose Aquindo, Tony Pena, and then Ken Hill. Ground ball to the right side to Sandberg. 1 pitch and 1 away. We have a moment, you know, earlier we alluded to the fact that the Cubs sent some players away, and it certainly saved about $5 million. But it was not just an effort to save money, because when you look at the list, you realize a lot of those players, like Ron Cey and Leon Durham, are no longer playing. Jody Davis and Keith Moreland coming to the end of their careers. Big Lee Smith still flourishing in Boston. But the Cubs, what it really means, an infusion of young talent. And there they are atop the heap in the National League East. Haven't been up there this late since 1985. Tony Pena committing his first error of the year on a tough play, trying to handle a throw from the plate with a sliding runner. Strike. Pena hitting .245, 2 home runs, 9 RBIs. He has never hit as well as the Cardinals had hoped he would hit ever since he came over with the broken thumb. 1-1 to Tony. Mike Bilecki trying to settle down after a rocky first inning. Got that ball up a little bit, and Pena fouled it away. 1-2.
Well, Bilecki went in the Cub dugout after last inning. Dick Pole, the pitching coach, got him aside, and he was chewing on one ear. I know exactly what he was chewing about. There's Dick Pole, the pitching coach. Get the ball down. Basic rule number 1, first inning to 9, first pitch to last. Get the ball down.
Ground ball, and there's Ryne Sandberg. It would appear as if there are 2 places here where you don't want to hit the ball, to Ozzie Smith and to Ryne Sandberg.
Golden Gloves all around the middle of that infield on different sides.
Busch Stadium in St. Louis. A warm June day and a very hot rivalry. The Cardinals and the Cubs. Ken Hill, who looks to be a pretty good athlete. 5 hits, including a run batted in. A strike.
Talking about being a good athlete, I asked him yesterday, I said, "Do you play other sports?" He said, "Yeah, I play basketball." I said, "Well, how many did you score?" He said, "Not very many." I said, "Would you play other positions in baseball?" He said, "Yeah, I play the infield." I said, "Good hitter?" He said, "No, not very good."
No.
And it's just an understatement. He just very shy, very introverted. And I told him that he was hitting 4th tomorrow because the club wasn't scoring many runs, and I got a big smile out of that one.
You know, Bilecki just took a little off that last pitch to him, and that brings up a point. Here's a 1-2 pitch to Ken Hill, and he chased it. I was wondering about changing up unless he's a good hitter. You don't usually change up on pitchers.
No, not very often. That would be a rarity.
3-1 Cardinals at the end of 2, and we'll be right back after these messages.
The Game of the Week is brought to you by your Toyota dealer. Whatever car or truck you choose, you'll love the quality. Who could ask for anything more? By Norelco Lift and Cut Shavers. We made clothes comfortable. And by First Brands Corporation, makers of new Simonized non-abrasive car wax.
Kids in the ballpark like flowers in the field. You can't go by without looking at them. Isn't that great? Large crowd here at Busch Stadium in St. Louis. 3rd inning. Cardinals 3, Cubs 1. Doug DeCenzo, Mitch Webster, and Ryne Sandberg. And there's a strike. 0-1.
Amazing thing about this rivalry, there's almost as many blue shirts and caps here today, Vinny, as there are red. A lot of Cub fans here for the weekend.
Off-speed pitch fouled away 0-2. Talking about color, Harry Carey, who worked here for St. Louis for so many years and is the voice of the Chicago Cubs. Harry, there he is, was inducted into the St. Louis Media Hall of Fame today. Later on, it'll be the real thing at Cooperstown. But did we have a chance to chew on Harry?
Wait a minute, wait. What do you mean we?
Well, me. I got all of. Do you see the shirt he's wearing? Now,
you jumped him like a 3-2 hanging curveball.
It's a Channel 9 Chicago shirt, and he swears to me, number one, he has them in all colors. He also swore on a Bible that he had run out of clean shirts, so he wore a Cardinal red shirt today here at Busch Stadium.
Are you buying that excuse?
Got some swampland in Florida.
Yes, sir.
1 out, and Mitch Webster at the plate. Want to know the count. Well, you talk about a split personality for Harry Carey to come back to St. Louis as the Cub broadcaster, considering the heat of this rivalry. I mean, there's a Jekyll and Hyde or a yin and a yang or whatever.
Well, he is something. Those Cub people, they love him. He is like a god in Chicago.
Here's a drive into left center. Willie McGee moving over. Well, that'll do it for Webster. 2 down in the 3rd inning. And the batter will be Ryne Sandberg. When Harry made his little speech, he assured the crowd that that shirt was not Cardinal red. Ryne Sandberg coming up.
I won't tell America what you said. Now, you just needling. You loved it. First thing when I saw you, said you're needling Harry about that red shirt.
Great. Ryne Sandberg fouled out to Terry Pendleton in the 1st inning. 4-1, 1-0. Sandberg with Grace hitting back of him. 3-1 St. Louis, top of the 3rd. Fastball away. 2 balls and no strikes. When you look at the Cubs and realize they lost their starting outfield for a while, and you look at the Cardinals and their pitching staff decimated by injuries, then you look at the New York Mets and you see Hernandez and Carter and others having trouble. You suddenly realize that Pittsburgh lost a lot of people, but the Montreal Expos so far have been blessed. Not only blessed by missing injuries, they made the deal they wanted to make, Mark Langston, and they are 2 games behind the Cubs.
A lot of speculation that the Langston deal was made to keep him from going to the New York Mets, too.
3-1 the count. Ball 4. So the 2-out pass to Sandberg will bring up Mark Grace. To show you the losses, among other things, the Mets, their captains, Hernandez and Carter, the Cardinal pitching staff, people like Cox and Matthews, Worrell's on the DL, McGrain has had a sore elbow, the Cub 3 outfielders, and of course for the Pirates, among others, Sid Bream, catcher Mike LaValliere, Andy Van Slyke, Jim Gott coming out of the pen, and Montreal so far so good. There goes Sandberg. What a jump. Stole that easily. For Sandberg, who does everything well, he has now stolen 8 out of 10. The Prince Valiant of Chicago. It wasn't close.
He just got a great jump. One of the things that Hill does will make young mistakes, and the biggest mistake so far in the inning is his 2 outs, giving up the base on balls to Sandberg. That just shouldn't be done.
Foul ball. If we still have that on the disc, I'd like to see the slide again. I was a little surprised. Sandberg went in on his left side. You would expect on a throw coming from the catcher, he'd go on his right side and try to hook and get away, but he actually came to the inside of the bag, but he had such a good jump there was no chance for the shortstop Ozzie Smith to get him. 1-1. You don't see the art of sliding much anymore. Now watch this. See, he's on his left side, so he's coming right into the tag, where in the old days he'd be with a big hook fadeaway towards right, and it would be twice as tough to get him.
Well, I think the theory there is take the lead leg straight to the bag. Get the leg to the bag as quickly as you possibly can. And they do that by going straight into the bag. So one of the things Gil Hodges talked about, one of the old Brooklyn Dodger theories, is that when you slide into the bag, you go straight into it and don't lay the leg back and do the hook slide and the fade out slide where it takes the leg longer to get to the bag. You want to take that leg straight in. After it gets to the bag, then you can take the body away.
3-1 to count. Mark Grace trying to pick up Ryan Sandberg. And that's away. Ball 4. So Ken Hill pitching very carefully to the numbers 3 and 4 hitters, and he has walked them both. And that brings up the switch hitting catcher Damon Berryhill. Well, Whitey Herzog, he's leading 3-1 in the third, trying to snap a 5-game losing streak with his pitching coach Mike Rourke alongside of him. Mike with his eyes riveted on Ken Hill.
On his young pitcher is exactly right. And one of the things he talked about yesterday is young mistakes, the mistakes that a young pitcher will make. He gets 2 quick outs in the inning, and then base on balls. Base on balls. There are axioms in this game that will live forever because they are true. And bases on balls will kill you, especially with 2 outs. You don't want to do them when you have 2 outs, and do not walk the leadoff hitter. Those are the kind times that base on balls will hurt you most.
Here's a very aggressive hitter, Damon Berryhill. He is up there to hit. He has walked 3 times this year, but 1 of the 3 intentional. So that means they have managed to walk him only twice. And Mike Rourke is going out there to say, wait a minute now. I can understand you finesse Sandberg. Then you got overly cautious with Grace. But now to go behind the Berryhill 1-0, we got to break this habit right now.
Well, it's a 3-1 score up there. So listen, young man, go ahead. You have good stuff. You're pitching well. Go be aggressive. Throw strikes. Go get these hitters. One of the things you have to do as a pitcher, if you've noticed here watching where these pitches have been, they have been up and away to these 2 left-hand hitters. And that will come because the left side is opening too quickly. That left arm will be flying out. And your body and your arm just can't get there, and the balls will be up and away to the left-hand hitters. Now, maybe Rourke saw that. Hill, a young pitcher, only 23, may not have the experience to sense it himself.
Fastball is hit off his leg, deflected to Ozzie, who drops it, picks it up, and has no play, and the bases are loaded. A base hit off Ken Hill's leg. Ozzie tried to short hop the deflection and couldn't do it. So Berryhill singles to fill him up. Off the right leg, and here comes Ozzie, but he couldn't handle it.
That is certainly a play that you would expect Ozzie Smith to make. 7 errors so far this season, but the reason that Hill didn't get to the ball because the ball was hit to his non-glove side. It ended up on the right side of his body, and it was hit well by Berryhill. But that's a play I would certainly think that somewhere you would expect Ozzie Smith to make, either at second or the throw to first base.
Ball 1 to Dwight Smith. That's where he thought he was able to bring it to the bag for the force. Now you think he's got a play on Berryhill, but he opted not to. So the base is loaded, and Dwight Smith, a pretty hot hitter. He's hitting 9 of his last 11, and they count 2 balls and no strikes. One of the interesting things about this game, and it shows you the rivalry and the nearness, Chicago's about 295 miles away. The crowd is roaring almost as if the home team is at the bat. Little fly ball into left center field, and it is going to fall. In comes Sandberg. In comes Grace. Here comes Berryhill.
It looked for a moment like Willie McGee pulled up on the ball just at the last minute. It was just between Coleman and left and McGee. I don't think either one of them could have gotten it.
McGee took his eye off the ball to see where Coleman was. That's the big difference in that play. If as the captain he's going to go and get anything hit in his area, he might have had a play, but he took his eye off to see where Coleman was. He was fearful of a collision. And it is 4-3 Chicago. Ball 1 to Curtis Wilkerson.
And Kenny Hill has made his own bet here in the sense of walking base on balls, an infield base hit, and then to Smith a 2-0 pitch, costing 3 runs.
Watch McGee, and especially watch his head as he is on the dead run. We can get close enough, and he's already looked. It was a better shot on the close-up that we had of him going after the ball. You could see him take his eyes off it. 1-1 to count. 1-2. Wilkerson struck out in the second inning. The Cubs 4 runs 4 hits. The Cardinals 3 runs 3 hits, and we're only in the third inning. We got quite a game going here.
7 runs already, Vince. More we've had in 3 weeks total.
Wilkerson trying to pick up Dwight Smith. Roller to the right side. Jose Oquendo nipped him. Wilkerson running very well, especially hitting left-handed. He has the extra steps. But the Cubs score 3 and turn it around. And at the end of 2 1/2, the Cubs 4 and the Cardinals 3.
I'm Maria Shriver, New York, with the latest developments from Beijing, China. As we have been reporting to you all day, the situation there is chaotic and it is violent. It is not yet dawn, something like 4 o'clock Sunday morning in Beijing. More than 100 people are dead. Hundreds more have been wounded. Most of the violence has occurred in and around Tiananmen Square. And to find out what it has been like to be in that square, to be amidst that violence, we want to go now to Arthur Kent, who has just come back. And we want to mention that we are unable to get live pictures out of Beijing at this moment, but we do have some slides that Arthur was able to take that can give us some indication of what that situation has been like. Arthur, the first picture we are looking at now is of an armed personnel carrier with students on top of it. What was that like?
Well, when the students, as outgunned as they were, had an opportunity to lay their hands on any government machinery, they did seize it. They did put torch to it, and if they could get their hands on the soldiers inside, in view of the casualties that the students were taking by the army firing on them, I'm afraid that they acted rather brutally in some cases. I saw 1 policeman and 1 APC driver beaten to death.
Now we are looking at a lot of smoke and fire, which seems to have been taken right in Tiananmen Square. Students confronting the troops. As you said, they are outmanned. How have they been able to confront the troops?
Well, the troops took about 2 hours to fight their way 3 miles down the western boulevard, which approaches Tiananmen Square. The students would typically slow them down with the stone-throwing flurry, which did not last long in the face of direct gunfire. They would fall back block by block, set up a few burning buses, some rubbish, and so on. It slowed the army down. It didn't stop them.
We are now looking at what looks like just a tremendous amount of fire, tremendous amount of smoke. We were being told all day long that many of the students, even though troops were coming into the square, just stayed there.
Yes, that's right. I mean, you have to remark that the students were not prepared for a violent confrontation. You did not see them armed with Molotov cocktails, with pikes. Certainly some of them picked up sticks. They broke bricks, made stones, projectiles. But I think all of us in the street, those of us who were observing, and the students who had taken part in the demonstration these past weeks, could not believe that an army in this day and age would be used against the civil population in such a brutal and
Arthur, we now see a picture of looks like a student being held upside down, being carried out by people from Tiananmen Square. What happened to him?
As the students fell back from each successive assault by the army, they would try to resist. Those who resisted too long came under fire, first over their heads. If they stayed too long, the soldiers would take aim with their assault rifles. This boy was hit in the head and died on the spot.
And finally, we have a picture of a tank, a 339 APC tank that seems to be on fire and seems to be somewhere in the middle of the square.
Well, his mistake was to approach on a side street and to turn into the main boulevard approaching the Tiananmen Square before the main assault force had reached him. The students were still falling back. They surrounded the tank, blocked his escape, and burned it, killing, as I said, at least one member of the crew.
Arthur Kent with the latest pictures. Thank you very much. He, as we told you, has spent the early hours of Sunday morning in Tiananmen Square, where most of the violence has occurred. You just saw the latest pictures. And we have some late reports that the lights have been turned off in Tiananmen Square. We will, of course, continue to keep you up to date on the situation in Beijing as it changes. For the moment, I'm Maria Shriver, NBC News, New York.
The contrast is shocking. The darkness and the carnage of Beijing and the festive atmosphere here in Busch Stadium. It certainly puts the ball game in proper perspective. At the same time, for all of us, it gives us a respite from the horrors of the real world, at least for a little while. Boy, what a shock to go from those pictures and that commentary to ball one, strike one.
This doesn't seem possible, does it?
No.
When things seemed as if they were beginning to cool off over there, and all of a sudden, boom, everything's erupted.
We have 2 out in the 3rd inning. It is 4-3 Chicago. Vince Coleman flied to left. Willie McGee grounded to Mark Grace. Ozzie Smith bounced a 2-out single to right. And Pete Guerrero is the batter in the count, 1 ball and no strikes. Guerrero doubled to left center in the 1st inning. We've already had 3 doubles and a home run in this game, and we're in the bottom of the 3rd. A strike. 1-1. Guerrero doubled in McGee, and then he rode home on Pendleton's home run. 1 ball, 1 strike. By lucky, watching Ozzie Smith, it is doubtful that Ozzie would try to go, even though he has stolen 7 out of 9. The gamble might not be worth it to take the bat out of Guerrero's hands. But then again, the Cardinals struggling. They are 9th in the league in runs scored. Whitey might try anything.
Well, he has been doing that too. But he has been stealing, hitting, run, doing anything. Get the runners in motion. Try and generate a run himself with his speed.
Every time a base runner gets his right foot on the rug, it's almost like Pavlov's dog salivating when it hears the bell. The pitcher immediately throws over to first. Was that your experience trying to hold a man on if he got his right foot on the rug?
That's one of the things that changed through the years, too, because of there was so much more speed.
Fouled away. It
used to be, I went back, you go back an era to when there were some outstanding catchers around in the major leagues. Johnny Bench and Yeager, Sanguillen, Ferguson, Freehand, Simmons, a lot of people. What it was when I first came up was that don't give the runners a walking lead. Make them stop. As long as you made them stop, that was fine. But there is so much more speed now that if you do let that runner get out there to the carpet, it's time to go over to first base. You're exactly right.
Ozzie, right foot on the rug. Guerrero backs out, and the count 1-2. Cubs 4, Cardinals 3. We're in the bottom of the third inning with 2 out. It's shaping up to be a wild one. Mike Balecki and Ken Hill. Foul tipped and held by Berryhill. So Guerrero tries to uppercut and strikes out. No runs, 1 hit, a man left, and at the end of 3, Cubs 4, Cardinals 3. The leaders in the National League West, the San Francisco Giants, leading Atlanta 2-0, bottom of the 4th, and an old refrain. The Giants had the league's leading hitter, Will Clark. He was on base. Kevin Mitchell hit his 18th home run. Now the Cardinals have 21 home runs. The Cubs have 21 home runs. And Kevin Mitchell all alone has 18. The Los Angeles Dodgers have 22. You know, an interesting thing about Kevin Mitchell, and we're going to see him in 2 weeks when we go to Candlestick Park on the game of the week. The way he thinks as a hitter. Drive into right center field. Brunansky and McGee, and Brunansky says he'll take care of it, and he does. 1 down. The thing about Kevin Mitchell, he says he thinks backwards. In other words, most hitters go up there looking fastball, feeling they can adjust to the curveball, the slider, the splitter, whatever. Mitchell says he goes up looking breaking ball. And he got that philosophy from Willie Mays. That Mays said everybody thought I was a great fastball hitter, but I was always looking curveball.
Mays is a great breaking ball hitter.
Yeah.
A great breaking ball hitter.
So he's a pup out of Willie.
The thing about it is that you have to have tremendous bat speed. And Mitchell, he's tremendously strong wrist and great bat speed. You can do that. Willie, toward the end of his career, did not have good bat speed. He could only hit the breaking ball. You could throw the ball by him inside. That day will come someday for Kevin Mitchell. But so far, no. He has such tremendous bat speed that he can sit on the breaking ball and the off-speed pitch and still hit the fastball.
People talk about Kevin Mitchell and how he's improved. One reason that he has improved is a physical improvement that no one talks about. Pitch is hit down the right line, foul. When Kevin Mitchell was in the minor leagues, he was beamed. And for many years, he never saw properly out of his left eye. And of course, being a right-hand hitter, that left eye is so important.
That's the dominant eye, you're right.
Now, with glasses and contacts and training, he sees better with the left eye, and now he's an explosive hitter. 2-2 the count.
Coming in here, I would have bet we would see no home runs. I mean, these two ball clubs, I would bet we would see low-scoring runs, ball games, very few runs. 7 runs already just up through the 3 innings.
Little nubber backhanded by Ken Hill. And we have 2 down. Let's get a sports update. We'll go to New York and visit with Marv Albert.
All right, Vin, and on the subject of Kevin Mitchell, who hit the 2 home runs last night, today, this his 18th of the season with a man on to go along with 53 RBIs, major league highs. The first place Giants lead the Braves 2-0 in the 4th inning. Back to Vin and Tom.
2 down in the 4th, and Doug DeCenzo, the batter. The center fielder has flied to left and struck out. 0 for 2. The Cubs leading 4-3, but the Cardinals led 3-0 at the end of 1 inning. Strike, 0-1. Off speed. Now the fastball and the count 0-2. DeCenzo playing for Jerome Walton, who is on the DL with a severely torn hamstring. Boy, he went down like he was shot. Phil Stevenson also went out with a rib injury. And of course, Andre Dawson is out and will be out for quite a while. Hit to McGee. Willie puts it away, and the Cubs are retired in order for the second time in 4 innings. At the end of 3 1/2, the Cubs 4, the Cardinals 3. Bottom of the 4th inning, the Cardinals now trying to come back. Cubs 4, Cardinals 3. Terry Pendleton, Tom Brunansky, and Jose Oquendo. Pendleton went the other way and hit a 2-run home run in the first inning. Comes up empty with that one. 0-1 to count.
The thing that really turned Berlecki around, Vinny, is that he went to winter ball last year, was very successful. He just had never understood a winning attitude in the major leagues. Dick Pohl really got on him about throwing strikes and about throwing the fork ball 4 strikes as a changeup. He came over from the Pittsburgh organization, and they tried to get him to throw the curveball, and his arm angle is not really good for a curveball. It's good for a slider, and they didn't want him to throw the forkball. Well, he put the forkball back in with Pohl, went down to winter ball, found out that it would work. Now he's got the nickname Style Master in Chicago. I mean, he is full of confidence. He really thinks he can beat anybody at any time.
Well, it's always a challenge to face a Pendleton, especially in the daytime. It is no accident that Pendleton hit a home run in the daytime. Last year, he hit 295 in the days and about 60 points lighter than that at night. And for each of the last 5 years, Pendleton has been a much better hitter, daytime as opposed to night. 3-1. Strike 2. 3-2. Last year he did so much better as a right-handed batter. He's trying to balance it up a little bit. And so this year, wouldn't you know, he's hitting about 70 points higher left-handed, and he can't get started right-handed. Must be very tough to be a switch hitter, a successful switch hitter from either side of the plate.
It's just always they seem to have difference. Yeah. You know, like Eddie Murray is a different hitter left-handed, he is right-handed. Right. Mickey Mantle was. Different weaknesses, different strengths.
I remember when Jim Gilliam first came to the Dodgers a long time ago, Rookie of the Year, a switch hitter, long before you saw so many switch hitters.
Sure.
And I asked Gilliam, I said, what's the toughest thing about being a switch hitter? And his answer was very surprising. He said, not getting hit by the ball, because you use a whole set of reflexes differently from one side than the other. Never thought of that. 3-2 to Pendleton. I wonder if they use a different bat. You know, a left-handed bat, right-handed bat, strength in the top hand.
Sure.
Yeah.
You know, one of the games I've always played, when I was on the bench and you look out and you say, what if? You know, you're talking about what if Ted Williams had been a switch hitter? What if Henry Aaron? What if Willie Mays had been a switch hitter? You know, watch these guys play. And go around, hit from the other side of the plate, and give Mays another step toward first base.
A busted bat and a flare to left for a base hit. Well, if it was a left-handed bat, he'll need another one as Pendleton's bat disintegrates, but he singles to left, and he's 2 for 2. So the Cardinals had the tying run aboard with nobody out. Pendleton, as the bat shatters, is a threat to do some running. He has stolen 5 out of 6. Boy, that thing came apart in sections.
It's okay if you get an out. The bad part is to make a pitch like that, make a bat disintegrate, but the guy ends up on first base.
Look at that.
And that's a deadly weapon. There have been players have been hit with that thing, and that really caused you a lot of problems.
1 ball and no strikes. Yeah, I've seen several near disastrous injuries.
Yeager got hit, didn't he, in the mouth?
Yeager got it in the neck. And Larry Jackson, who once pitched here in St. Louis, pitching an exhibition game in Vero Beach, and Duke Snyder's bat broke like that, and it went right through his cheek. 1 ball and no strikes.
Never had one. I never had a bat broken coming. I had bats coming at me,
but not
let
broken.
Go by the hitter. It's like a helicopter blade coming. You don't know which to go left, right, or up or down. But
terrifying. Tom Brunansky popped up in the first inning, 0 for 1. 1 ball and 1 strike to count. Brunansky second to Guerrero in RBIs. Pete with 36, and then he picked up another today to give him 37. And Brunansky has 27. Brunansky at the end of last year hit an 0 for 30 streak. And he had a long 0 for streak earlier this year. Now he's coming out of it a little. But he's still only hitting in the 220s. So they're worrying about Pendleton. He's the tying run. Damon Berryhill, an aggressive catcher.
Certainly players pull for their own players on their own team. But Sutcliffe was just raving about Berryhill yesterday. He's absolutely the best catcher in the league now. Calling the game, handling pitchers, moving behind the plate very late. The way he calls the game, throwing, aggressive hitting, right at that 300 mark. And this is an organization with 2 good young catchers. This is one of them. Joe Girardi, the other one, who was down at Iowa in AAA. If you're going to be like San Diego, they're going to have a chance to trade one of the 2.
High fly ball to left field. Webster going back on the track. Pendleton is tagging the catch, and Pendleton on his way. He is in there, standing up. So Brunansky gets him up a notch to second base. So the tying run at second for Whitey Herzog, and Jose Aquindo trying to pick him up. We have time to remind you we'll be presenting our State Farm Rules of the Game feature during our 7th inning stretch timeout. Aquindo grounded to second in the second inning. Jose 0 for 1. He is a team pitcher all by himself. He can play anywhere, and has. Aquindo last year started games at 7 different positions. He didn't start at either battery position, but he did play 1 game each. He pitched 4 innings, and he caught an inning, so he can do it all. 1 ball and no strikes. Ball 2. So far this year, Aquindo has barely worked at all. He's only played second and short.
Veritable off year, isn't it? The Mets question whether Aquindo would ever hit. He came up through their organization. Whitey Herzog has always loved Jose's glove. He's got a tremendous arm. He could be playing shortstop right now for virtually anybody in the major leagues. But the Mets question whether he would ever hit. Last year he hit 277.
Ball 3. Well, he's a lifetime 260 hitter. That's great. The Cubs are worrying about Bielecki as he falls behind 3-0 to Aquindo, and Tony Pena on deck. Aquindo taking over his head, so Bielecki was not close as he walks his first man. 2 on, 1 out, and Tony Pena coming up. Pena grounded out in the second inning. After Pena comes the pitcher, Ken Hill. That's Steve Wilson, the left-hander, down in the Cub bullpen. And time now, Dick Pohl, who walks out to the mound almost like the leader of the Shore Patrol. I mean, you want to talk about a positive-looking pitching coach. He's either going out to instruct him or whip him.
There will be a small discussion on the mound, that's for sure. Dick is certainly the boss when it comes to what happens out there. One of the things that young pitchers don't understand, and it's very difficult for young pitchers to understand, he's getting a slice of raw meat right there. He is really chewing and getting something across.
I know you were great, but did you ever get chewed out on the mound? I mean, chewed out.
No, not really. No. Gil Hodges would come to the mound and say something, but very softly. I mean, he didn't have to speak very loudly, but he would. I don't ever recall really getting chewed out.
Probably doesn't help a pitcher very much to go. I mean, he's in enough trouble, unless sometimes you think he's a sleepwalker.
It's the personality, you know. I mean, each pitching coach must know the personality of the pitcher on the mound. You know, and there might be 9 other pitchers on this Cubs staff that Dick Poe could not talk to the way that he talked to Bilecki, but it might work for him.
Well, we'll see. Tony Pena at the plate. 2 on, 1 out. 4-3 Cubs. First ball swinging. A fly ball to left field. And, of course, that brings up a question. As a pitcher, you have just walked Oquendo on 4 pitches. Are you saying I'm going to try and get ahead of the hitter and get it over the plate, and Oquendo or Pena is saying he's going to try and throw me a fastball strike, I'm going to go after the first pitch?
One of the points I wanted to make, Benny, there was that there are times when a pitcher will throw 4 balls like to an Oquendo and not really understand why, from a mechanical standpoint, he's throwing the ball so far out of the strike zone. And that's where the pitching coach can come up and out there and help. I think Poe went out and said, listen, I want you to throw strikes. I want you to throw strikes inside. He is an old-time pitching coach in the sense that he is trying to establish with his pitching staff, let's pitch inside. Let's go inside. Because if we pitch inside, then we can get him out on the outside part of the plate. Everything through Oquendo was away, up and away, up and away. And the old-timers, I'm telling you, the old-time pitching coaches just flat do not like that. They want to see somebody challenge somebody, go inside. When I say inside, I don't mean on the plate inside. I mean from the end of the plate toward the hitter.
0-1 to count to Ken Hill. He struck out in the 2nd inning. Breaking ball is hit up in the air. Goes Dunston to take a base hit away from him. Sean Dunston up the ladder to save the tying run from scoring, and the Birds lead 2 out on the limb. At the end of 4, Cubs 4, Cardinals 3. We'll be right back. Let's take another look at that big play by Sean Dunston. He had to be fully extended. And remember, he taking a base hit away from the opposing pitcher. And down in the dugout, pitching coach Dick Pohl, who looks like a retired drill instructor from Paris Island.
I don't know if he's retired.
He's running his boot camp down there.
Oh, he caught a break there. Hill, not just an easy out. Hill hitting 263, but a good play by Dunston to get Bilecki out of a hole.
So it's still 4-3 Cubs, and we go to the 5th. Mitch Webster, Ryan Sandberg, and Mark Grace. Webster rolled to short, fly to center, 0 for 2. Hit in the air down the left field line, slicing in the corner, foul. Coleman is just going to watch it go in the seats. Cardinals scored 3 in the 1st inning. The Cubs came back with 1 in the 2nd and 3 in the 3rd. Kind of a swinging bunt, 0-2. So we're in the 5th inning, and the Cubs are leading 4-3. Big crowd. The Cubs just finished a large attendant crowd with the Cincinnati Reds at Wrigley Field. Strike 3 to Webster. In fact, they had a Sunday game. That was the largest crowd since 1987. Big crowd here today. Meanwhile, Toronto pounding Boston 9-2. The new manager, Cito Gaston, and of course the new ballpark awaits them now that they've gotten the certificate of occupancy. That was some story. Here's a $350 million edifice, and the commissioner in charge of certificates of occupancy said, nope, I've got 4 pages of building violations.
They wouldn't give them the key to the front door. They couldn't get in.
1 hour later, they got the certificate, I understand. And when they open up that magnificent blue ballpark in Toronto, NBC will be there. 2-0 to Sandberg. And he hits one foul off third. And that will peel back into the crowd by a half a dozen rows. Sandberg fouled out and walked. That was the beginning of the troubles for Ken Hill in the 3rd inning. With 2 outs, Sandberg walked, Stoll second, Grace walked, and Berryhill slammed one off Hill's leg to load the bases, and Dwight Smith doubled in all three. Ground foul. 2-2.
Talking to Mike Rourke about Mike Hill, or Kenny Hill, excuse me. You know, a 2-4 record. He's a young pitcher that has never won at any level on a big way. He was 9-9 at Arkansas last year, but never a winning record. And he said he would almost rather have Kenny Hill win a game 8-7 than pitch a good game and lose 2-1. He wants to get that winning attitude, almost learn what it takes to be a winner, and that is something that you have to learn on the major league level.
3-2 the count to Ryan Sandberg. 1 out in the 5th inning. Cubs leading the Cardinals 4-3. And the fastball popped up. It'll be Ozzie Smith, the shortstop. 2 down. I was wondering, in your very early days, was there a game where you felt you belonged in the big leagues? Was there a dramatic turning point where you won a game and you said to yourself, you know, I belong up here. I can pitch here.
Well, I think a couple of times in my career in 1967, I went to Wrigley Field and played against these Chicago Cubs, had them shut out up into the bottom of the 9th inning, and my roommate Buddy Harrelson let a ball go between his legs. It tied the game at 1-1. He was in tears after the game. But the manager, Wes Westrom, left me in the ball game. I led off the top of the 10th with a single, bunted the 2nd, and ultimately came around and scored. Went on and pitched the bottom of the 10th and won 2-1. That was one. That was one game that really said, yeah, now you really belong. The other one, the All-Star game, as a rookie in Anaheim, where we're going to be with the All-Star team, and pitched the bottom of the 15th inning.
Mark Grace, a 2-out single to right, and the batter will be Damon Berryhill. I'm sure in your growth and development there are important moments.
There are steps. There are steps that you learn what it takes to be a winner.
What about the All-Star game? Why did that make you feel?
Well, I was picked by Walter Alston. I was sitting there with, I think it was Claude Osteen who had pitched, or Don Drysdale. I don't remember. But I walked in from the bullpen in Anaheim. Remember, they were way out in right field and it was open. And I was looking around. Willie Mays in center, Henry Aaron, there was Pete Rose, there was Tony Perez, there was Tim McCarver, and I said, listen, these guys are counting on me. And a year and a half ago, I was a student over at USC, and now I'm in the middle of an All-Star game here in Southern California. And once I got to that mound, I walked past Pete, second base. He says, you want me to pitch? And I'll play second. I said, no. And I was very nervous until I got to the mound, and it was like walking into my living room. I said, this is where I belong. This is where I know what to do up here on this little patch of dirt. And you do belong.
2 balls and no strikes.
Perez hit a home run at the top of the 15th.
Oh, yeah.
So I had to face Freehan and Canigliaro. And I got those 2 outs. And the 3rd hitter was Yastrzemski. What do you think he did? He got a free pass to first base on 4 straight balls. No, thank you.
Always said you were a bright young man. 2 balls and no strikes to Damon Berryhill. And he hits a fly ball to right field. Brunansky is there. No runs, 1 hit, a man left. We have 4.5 innings in. The Cubs 4 and the Cardinals 3. Bottom of the 5th inning, Vince Coleman, Willie McGee, and Ozzie Smith. Good ball game with the Cubs leading the Cardinals 4-3 after the Cardinals got out in front 3-0. Coleman grounded to first, flied to left, 0 for 2. A shot right back at Bilecki. It almost knocked a syllable off, but he made the play. 1 down. That had to be a pitcher's nightmare, always a comebacker.
I think it's just to get yourself in good fielding position. You know the thing I thought of? It was one of the things I read in the paper here as we got up this morning. Mitch Williams, who came in to save the game for the Cubs last night. If that ball were hit and Mitch Williams were pitching, base hit right at the middle.
Sure.
That pitcher getting in fielding position becomes the 5th infielder. You can do so much for yourself.
I love the line in the paper where they were quoting Mitch Williams, who struck out the side last night to preserve the victory. Here's the strike 1 pitch to McGee, and he said, I watch Rick Sutcliffe pitch and it makes me sick. He pitches like he's sitting on a lawn chair. I'm out there pitching like my hair is on fire. That sums him up pretty well. 1 ball and 1 strike to Willie McGee. There's Rick Sutcliffe, who pitches, according to Mitch, like he's sitting on a lawn chair. 1-2. Fouled away by McGee into the crowd down the line. Willie double to left, got a high changeup in the first inning. Then last time up, pulled the ball on the ground to Mark Grace. McGee batting .227. Never gotten started this year. Milt Thompson did very well in his stead. 1 ball, 2 strikes. Over the top, and a breaking ball is hit to Sandberg. 2 down. Well, you talk about getting on top of a breaking ball. That was a classic example. He really got on top of that one. That was a hammer curve. And the batter will be Ozzie Smith.
One of the problems he's had, Bilecki has had, is not getting on top of the ball and throwing the ball from back to front. Almost as if you're going to draw a straight line through from the back of your ear to the front of your ear. And what you really have to do is kind of draw it down through your jawbone.
Ozzie Smith fouling out to Damon Berryhill, and at the end of 5. The Cubs 4, the Cardinals 3, and time for the Birds to go to work. Mike Schmidt becomes a memory, and what a happy memory indeed in the National League. It was quite an emotional farewell.
It certainly was.
As Mike called it a career. And now that Mike is gone, the first thing that Philadelphia did was make a trade. They traded Chris James, who was himself in tears when Mike Schmidt was saying farewell. They traded Chris James to San Diego for Randy Reddy, who'll play third, and John Kruk, who can play the outfield.
It's not very often that you can say that you saw or played against. Many people will consider the best ever at that position, and you can make a very good argument that Mike Schmidt is the best third baseman of all time.
Indeed.
And a lot of them, too. Brooks Robinson, Eddie Matthews, a lot of people. But not many people in, no matter what era that you grew up in, and say, you know, I played against or saw played or whatever, the best ever at that position.
Mike Schmidt hit 50 home runs at Wrigley Field, just to put a little Chicago touch to it. Smith at first. Here's Curtis Wilkerson. We're in the 6th inning, and the Cubs leading the Cardinals 4-3. You know, talking about that trade last night or yesterday between Philadelphia and San Diego, interesting notes coming out of the minor leagues about weird trades. And if you like the odd and the bizarre, you might enjoy a couple of these. Foul down the line, out of play. For instance, the Reno Silver Sox of the California League recently traded pitcher Tom Fortuno to the Milwaukee Brewers. The negotiations began with Silver Sox co-owner and general manager asking for $4,000. He settled for $2,500 on a gross of baseballs. Now that's a true trade. And there are a couple of others that come to mind that that are really something. For instance, in the 1920s, the owner of the Omaha club traded a pitcher to St. Joseph's for an airplane. But the deal was subsequently canceled because the plane, not the pitcher, the plane was defective. I mean, that's a dirty trick. There's another one, and it's the reason why the pitcher got the nickname. 0-1 the count to Curtis Wilkerson. 1 ball, 1 strike. Oyster Joe Martinez. He won 355 games in a 22-year pro career. Got his nickname? Sure, he was traded for a barrel of oysters. And an infielder, Leonard Dondero, is once swapped for a dozen donuts. Now, those are trades to remember. 1 ball and 1 strike to count. More news on the uprising in Beijing.
I'm Maria Shriver in New York. We interrupt the ball game to bring you up to date on the latest situation in Beijing. As we have been mentioning all day long, there is violence. It is occurring. The situation is changing by the moment. It is about 5 a.m. Sunday morning over there. It is not yet daylight. We want to go now for the very latest to the Beijing Hotel, which is just off of Tiananmen Square. And Annie Peng, NBC correspondent, producer, is standing by. Annie, can you tell us what's going on?
Maria, from our balcony here, we can see armored cars moving into the square, followed by troops. Apparently, there are other troops moving in from other sides. Right down below us, there are about several thousand people still gathered very close to the square, onlookers trying to see what is going on and trying to give support. As we understand, there are still some students on the monument. They have not left yet, and I think the soldiers are going in to get them out. That's what we know from here. All our cameramen have to leave the square because it's getting very dangerous.
As you can see how close Annie is to Tiananmen Square from that map, we want to now go to Keith Morrison, who is standing by at another location. He has a little different vantage point. What can you see from where you are, Keith?
Well, we can see that they have turned the lights back on in the square, Maria. We are hearing more scattered gunfire in the last couple of minutes. Our last communication from Tony Wasserman, our cameraman on the scene, who has been on the scene there all night, was that behind the armored personnel carriers and across the square at the Great Hall of the People had massed quite a few soldiers equipped with bayonets on the fronts of their rifles, and they had been preparing for some time for what he assumed was going to be the final assault. The students had remained in the middle of the square, dazed, apparently expecting the worst to happen, but they're so exhausted and fatigued by what's gone on, they don't seem to be taking very much action at the moment to defend themselves. Tony has since had to, as he put it, get out of there. He said that tear gas was being thrown all around the square, and the troops were firing right in his direction, so we have our fingers crossed.
Keith Morrison, thank you very much. Those pictures that you were looking at are the very latest pictures. Broadcast operations are unable to transmit live pictures, so those slides are the very latest. They were taken by Arthur Kent, who was down in Tiananmen Square. As you just heard from Keith Morrison, there is still scattered gunfire as the situation changes, and as we repeat, it is changing by the moment. We will keep you up to date. But for now, we want to take you back to the ball game.
Thank you, Maria. As the ball game continues, Sean Dunston strikes out. Dwight Smith at first with 2 out. And yet as the game continues and we sit on the sidelines of the game and of life itself today, you ponder the question about man's inhumanity to man. Here's Mike Bilecki, 4-3 Chicago in the 6th inning. And he hits it down the right field line, slicing in the corner, foul. 4 runs, 5 hits for the Cubs. 3 runs, 5 hits, and 2 errors for the Cardinals. In the top of the 6th.
You're ever so right, Vinny, in the sense that what you talked about before about coming back to the ball game as a relief from what is going on over there. I mean, we sit and see the pictures and listen. You know, after getting excited in the joy of a baseball game, you listen to that and you come back and you really, it's like a downer.
Oh, and how. Well, Lucky hit a soft line drive right at Guerrero in the 2nd inning, hit back to the box in the 4th. No balls, 2 strikes. Top of the 6th inning, Cubs 4, Cardinals 3, 2nd game of the 3-game series. That was so close that John McSherry's right elbow quivered. He wanted to bring it up, and he fought that elbow to the death and kept it quiet. But I don't know if you can see his right elbow behind Pena's head, but from behind home plate, well, it really quivered and shook.
We call that a half a strike from the bench. What is that, a half a 2.5 strikes now we got?
2 and 2. Chopper to 3rd. Pendleton taking plenty of time, and that will be that. No runs, no hits, a man left. At the end of 5.5 innings, the Cubs 4 and the Cardinals 3. Reminder, next Sunday, starting at 12 noon, next Saturday, 12 o'clock Eastern Time, the Tigers and the Blue Jays, we will take a look, the entire nation will, at the new stadium in Toronto with Cito Gaston at the helm. Others will see the Cincinnati Reds at Dodger Stadium. Pedro Guerrero, Terry Pendleton, and Tom Brunansky. Off speed, check swing, no swing. 1 ball, no strikes. Paid attendance today, 44,719. Well over 45,000 in the house. Cardinals continue to draw well. They went over the million mark last night. The Dodgers and the Cardinals, the two teams in the National League to go over the million mark. And as you can see, the average at home. 1-1. Hit down the line, slicing, foul, and out of play, and the count 1-2.
The National League East and West have just come off of their series when they're playing each other, Vinny. The Cubs were 19-4 against the West. They had the best record of any National League East team. And it's significant. They were 19-14, excuse me. They were 19-14. It's significant when you think that the West overall against the East was +13. But the Cubs were 19-14 against the West.
This is when you see the divisional moves. This is when you see some teams blown out of the water. And you see the team suddenly take over and show some strength within the division. After 30-some-odd interdivisional play, now it's in Toronto. There's a shot up the alley, and Guerrero is on his way for his second double. And he is 2 for 3, and he represents the tying run. A storm signal is up, and they'll have action in the Cub bullpen. The Cardinals have had 3 doubles and a home run, and the Cubs have had a double. Jeff Pico is the right-hander to join Steve Wilson in the bullpen. And Bilecki now has to face Pendleton, Brunansky, and Oquendo in the 6th inning. 4-3 Chicago. Fastball hit down to short. Moving over to third is Guerrero. The out recorded at first. There was no chance for Dunston to make a play on Pete. So the tying run is 90 feet away for the Cardinals, and Tom Brunansky the batter.
Did you see the throw to first base?
Interesting that on that ground ball to short, Guerrero was thinking that Dunston might go after him, and Pete did what he doesn't like to do. Slide feet first, and he went right across the bag. Anytime Guerrero is in a situation where he may or may not slide, he is accident prone. So the infield comes up, and Brunansky at the plate. Popped up, flied to left, 0 for 2. 0-1. After Brunansky, Oquendo. Brunansky has 3 scoring fly balls. The leader for the Cardinals in that area, Guerrero, has 5. The outfield deep and straight away. Infield halfway. Ball 2. 2-0. Toronto polishing off the Boston Red Sox 10-2. Mike Bilecki trying to keep the tying run at third. Ball 3. Bilecki has walked only 1. That was Oquendo in the 4th inning. That's when Dick Cole went out and talked to him. And then Tony Pena hit the first pitch and flied to left to end the inning.
Both bullpens going now, Vinny, too. John Costello in the Cardinal bullpen warming up.
Fastball, they let him swing 3-0, and he hits it to deep left, and this one is off the wall. Guerrero scores, and Brunansky a double to tie it up. A 3-0 fastball right down the pipe, and Whitey Herzog letting Brunansky swing, and he took a little paint off the wall 383 feet away. So Brunansky really unloads. Another double. That's 4 doubles for the Cardinals, 5 doubles in the game, plus a home run. And we're all even 4-4 with Jose Oquendo at the plate.
When you're struggling for runs the way that the Cardinals are, Whitey very sharp and letting his big guy swing away when he has a pitcher just dead in the hole. Fastball right down the middle. He put it right off the wall.
0-1 to Jose Oquendo. Interesting, had Zimmer opted for it with the count 3-0, and I realized that Brunansky represented a winning run. But if he had put Brunansky on, he has Oquendo, who hits into a lot of double play. And this time hits it to Dunston, who makes a save, and Brunansky takes third. That's a big play by Sean Dunston. That's his second big play. Remember that leaping catch on the ball hit by Ken Hill in the 4th inning.
Second out that he's made in the inning there, a second assist that he has made. And this is one of the great arms, if not the best arm in baseball, pitchers included. Someday we'll get a gun over behind first base and get him on the radar again. He may top everybody.
2 down in the 6th inning in a 4-4 tie. Fastball is hit over the mound, over second, base hit for Pena, and the Cardinals lead 5-4.
Well, when you consider Bilecki came in with a second-best earned run average in the National League, 1.63, a terrific inning pitch and hit ratio, 55 and a third innings pitched, 44 hits, 41 strikeouts, only 17 base on balls. There he's tapped for 4 doubles on the day, a home run, 8 hits and 5 runs.
1 ball and no strikes to Ken Hill. Not only did Bilecki throw that 3-0 pitch down the middle, but then before Zimmer even had a chance to think about Tony Pena and what to do with him, Pena gets a base hit. That puts the Cardinals in front and brings up the pitcher. Little looper to the hole. Base hit, and Pena will stop at second. Hits for the Cardinals, and Don Zimmer making his way out to the mound. I was interested to look up intentional walks, and the Cubs had given up 19. The lowest would be the New York Mets. Davey Johnson hates to walk a hitter intentionally. The Cardinals have given up the most intentional walks. But Zimmer was not thinking of pitching around Brunansky or Pena, and it is 5-4 St. Louis. A change of pitchers. We'll be back right after this. This relief break is brought to you by Rolaids. Here's a look at this week's American and National League leaders in the standings for the Rolaids Relief Man Awards. Dennis Eckersley out in front of the American League. Mark Davis in the National League. John Franco along with Schooler runner-up. We'll be tracking total points awarded on the basis of wins, losses, saves, and blown saves. Mike Bilecki, who gave up 2 doubles on a single, then the infield single, was saved for even more grief by Dunston on the ball hit by Oquendo, but he goes out losing 5-4. It's up to Steve Wilson, the left-hander, and that turns Vince Coleman around. Wilson with a record of 2-0. He has a save. Coleman is 0 for 3, but that was hitting left-handed against Bilecki. Pena at second. Hill at first. 2 down in the 6th inning. 5-4 Cardinals. And he starts him fastball, ball one. 1-0. Wilson from Victoria, British Columbia. Maybe 25 in December. Was in the Texas organization. Fastball hit in the air to center. Doug DeCenzo is there. And that's it as the Cardinals get 2 to take the lead. 5-4. 2 runs on 4 hits and 2 left. We'll be right back after these messages from your local station.
Quad Cities, the time has come for you to experience life at its fullest. Come on down to the new John O'Donnell Stadium and see your own Quad City Angels take the field. Relive those days of going to the Big League Park right here in the Quad Cities. Looking for fun the whole family can enjoy? Then Quad City Angels baseball is it.
Come on down to John O'Donnell Stadium for T-shirt night this Friday at 7:30. The first 2,000 kids 16 and under receive a free Quad City Angels T-shirt, courtesy of Hy-Vee Food Stores, the Daily Dispatch, Leader, and Argus.
Join Lori Adams for your weather tonight.
A reminder tomorrow, the French Open at 3 p.m. Eastern Time. Mats Wilander beat Omar Camporisi in straight sets. Tomorrow, the 5th seed, Andre Agassi and Jim Courier. Tomorrow at 3, the French Open on NBC. We'll double check with the Cardinal bench. Rod Booker takes over at second base for Jose Oquendo. Oquendo running hard in the 6th inning was thrown out on that play by Sean Dunston. And perhaps he hurt himself overextending trying to get to the bag. We'll check. And the report we get is that he has indigestion and a stomach ache. So Oquendo goes out and Booker is now the second baseman. Seesaw game, and we've only played 6 innings. The Cardinals led 3-0. The Cubs led 4-3. The Cardinals lead 5-4. Now here come the Cubs with DeCenzo, Webster, and Sandberg against Ken Hill. And the corners are up looking bunt. Ball 1. Pendleton and Guerrero shortening up. The outfield way around towards left. In fact, they bring Willie McGee back 2 steps. Sizable gap in center and right center. And that's where the ball is hit. In the gap, McGee going back to cut it off and does. DeCenzo thinking 2 and settles for 1. And the tying run is aboard for the Cubs with nobody out. 5 runs, 9 hits for the Cardinals, 4 runs, 6 hits for the Cubs. That'll bring up Mitch Webster, but it also will bring up Whitey Herzog. And Whitey will bring a left-hander in from his bullpen.
It will not take him very long.
Ken Daly
made 118 changes now, pitching changes so far this season.
Yeah, and you know,
doesn't sound possible, does it?
This early, 50 games. So as we have a pitching change, we will pause with the Cardinals leading the Cubs 5-4.
I'm Maria Shriver in New York. As we have been reporting to you throughout the day, there have been skirmishes in and around Tiananmen Square all night long. But now it appears that government troops have pulled out all the stops. It is almost 6 a.m. Sunday morning. Tanks are reportedly now breaking down barricades and going right into Tiananmen Square. We want to go now for the latest. We go live to Annie Peng, who is at the Beijing Hotel, which is just adjacent to the square. Annie, what can you see from your vantage point?
Maria, truckloads of soldiers are still pouring in, and they are firing at people as they pass by. Anybody at the lining up on the side streets, they're firing at. Just now, 5 heavy tanks just moved into the square, and they just rode over barricades like the barricades weren't even there. And they're heading towards the square for a showdown right now.
And they are firing into the crowd.
They are firing into the crowd, and everybody have scattered. There is, looking down on the street, there is absolutely nobody on the street right now. It's totally empty. Everyone has run for cover.
Are people running into the hotel for safety?
Yes, they have, and people running onto side streets, and the soldiers are still coming.
Thank you, Annie Pong. I think we're going to try to go now to Keith Morrison, who is at another hotel a little bit further away. Keith, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you, Maria, and I can also hear the gunfire that is obviously closer to Annie. It's very evident even over here that something very big is going on there.
I'm sorry, Keith, we couldn't hear exactly what you were saying. You said you are hearing gunfire at this moment?
We certainly are, Maria. It seems to have reached a crescendo, all right. Our people in the field, thankfully, are still reporting to us, and we have our fingers crossed for them, and are hearing reports, all right, of tanks and many soldiers moving in on the square now. As we told you somewhat earlier, soldiers with bayonets had massed along beside the square, and there still was, a few minutes ago at least, a knot of students around the monument in the center. Whether or not they are still there is hard to tell.
Okay, Keith Morrison reporting live from Beijing. I have just been handed President Bush's statement. President Bush is in Kennebunkport, Maine, and as of the moment he had not made a statement. This is his most recent and his first statement. The president says it is clear that the Chinese government has chosen to use force against the Chinese citizens who are making a peaceful statement in favor of democracy. He goes on to say, I deeply deplore the decision to use force against peaceful demonstrators and the consequent loss of life. We have been urging and continue to urge nonviolence, restraint, and dialogue. Tragically, another course has been chosen. Again, I urge a return to nonviolent means for dealing with the current situation. The United States and the People's Republic of China over the last 2 decades have built through great efforts by both sides constructive relationships beneficial to both countries. I hope that China will rapidly return to the path of political and economic reform and the conditions of stability so that this relationship, so important to both of our peoples, can continue its growth. That is President Bush's statement, his first statement on the situation in China. We, of course, will continue to keep you up to date on this situation that, as we have seen all day long, changes by the moment. So we will, as I say, do that tonight on NBC Night News and throughout the day. We want to now return to Major League Baseball.
There is no way to make a graceful or an intelligent transition from what is transpiring in China and the pain and anguish and sorrow over there to a baseball game. So we will just tell you what has taken place here. After DeCenzo singled to center, John Costello was brought in and Mitch Webster grounded out to second. DeCenzo took second. Ryne Sandberg batted against Costello and hit a fly ball to straightaway center field. So with 2 down and the young left-hand hitting first baseman Mark Grace coming up, Whitey Herzog will once more go to the bullpen and bring in Ken Daly. More than any other manager last year, Whitey Herzog made more moves where he brought in a pitcher to face 1 hitter. Whitey did it 29 times. That's not to say that Daly won't continue in the game. But if he should disappear after 1 hitter, it would follow Whitey Herzog's plan of attack. Costello faced 2 hitters. So the tying run for the Cubs at second base with 2 out in the 7th. Cardinals 5, Cubs 4. And Herzog going to Daly to try and extricate the Cardinals out of the jam.
All you have to do is look at one of Whitey's quotes and understand how important a bullpen is to him. He says, you know, if you have a good bullpen, you're 25% smarter. He is not afraid to use the bullpen. The thing that killed him last year was the middle or long relief in his bullpen. He did a good job of his short guys, but the middle guys in his bullpen, the opposition hit him at about a 265 clip, and that really hurt him.
One of the middle relievers for whom Whitey had a great deal of respect and who he really missed was Jeff Lottie. Without Jeff Lottie, it changed the Cardinal bullpen. Then you have the emergence of Todd Worrell, but remember, Worrell, who is eligible to come off the disabled list, has a groin problem and still isn't throwing quite well enough. Interesting in this challenge with Ken Daly going against Mark Grace. Grace is hitting about 270 against left-handers. We'll see how he fares going head-to-head with the tying run at second base. Gray singled to right, scored a run, walked and scored a run, and singled to right. So he's 2 for 2. He's been busy. DeCenzo at second, carrying the tying run with 2 out in the 7th. First ball swinging, and that's hit foul back into the seats. 0-1.
This kid ever develops a little bit of power, but they don't start talking about him like they do Will Clark at San Francisco. Another one of the good young first basemen in this league. Amazing thing about his stats, last year he made 17 errors. So far this year, through 40-some-odd games, he's only made 1. He's really worked extremely hard on his defense, and he's up again hitting over 300.
Fouled away, 0-2. He's hitting .317 as he stands in at the plate. 2 for 2 with a walk.
Only 7 home runs last year. Odd thing about it, playing in Wrigley Field, he hit them all on the road.
It's been Ken Hill for 6 innings, John Costello for 2 hitters, and now Daly trying to get the last out in the 7th. Cardinals 5, Cubs 4. The Cubs have done a number on left-hand starters this year. That's high. The Cub record against left-hand starters, 12-4. One and 2 to Mark Grace. Damon Berryhill, the switch hitting catcher, on deck. And there's a line drive right at Booker. So Mark Grace hits a BB, but right at Booker. And here's another edition of State Farm Rules of the Game. Quick touch of the bases. Cito Gaston becomes the 4th black manager as he manages Toronto. The Orioles have won 10 out of 11, and the June amateur draft starts on Monday.
Starts on Monday, Vinny. It looks like Ben McDonald, a right-handed pitcher, 6'7" right-hander from LSU. Looks like he's going to be the first pick. The Orioles have that first pick. And also going on this weekend, the College World Series in Omaha. Florida State's the #1 seed. They won last night. They beat North Carolina 4-2. That's always a great thing. I never got to go there, but talked to many players who got to go to Omaha and play in the College World Series. And he said it is really a fun event, and that is a huge event in that town.
Big slow curveball to McGee, in the count 0-2. Interesting, when you look at the teams on first place on this day, you have to hearken back to 1984. It's almost a feeling of deja vu. The strike 2 pitch in the dirt. This year you have Baltimore coming off a terrible last year. In 1984 in the East, you have the Tigers. The Giants are coming back from an off year. They're in front. The Angels are in front. They had a bad year. And the Cubs are in front. In 1984 it was similar to that. 1-2. McGee, a chopper to shortstop. Dunston in a hurry. Zap. 1 down. In 1984, the Cubs had a bad 83, and they were the champs. The Padres were a 500 club in 83, and they won. The Royals were under 500 in 83, and they won. So the first place teams this year coming off poor last year, and it makes you think indeed of 84. 1 ball and no strikes to Ozzie Smith.
What a job Frank Robinson's doing. Isn't that just incredible?
Remarkable.
Put that pitching staff together. He and Al Jackson over there, the pitching coach.
High pop fly into shallow left. Mitch Webster with the shades down. 2 out in the 7th inning. We mentioned the Giants sitting atop the heap. We'll bring you up to date on the Will Clark, Kevin Mitchell show. And the Giants leading 4-0, top of the 9th inning. Rick Russell. Now there's another story. A 40-year-old right-hander, the first pitcher in the big leagues to win 10. He's just sailing along. Some of the older players are having their problems now, and it figured, of course. Mike Schmidt calling it a career. Tommy John jettisoned by the Yankees. Jim Rice is going to have surgery. Jerry Royce just a ways from his 40th birthday. He's not pitching much. Charlie Huff is still going along, but he has not been pitching well of late. Pete Guerrero double a left center to drive in a run, double to right center and scored a run, and scored when Pendleton homered following his first double. So he's very much in this game. If you are not keeping score and you wonder about the Cubs in the 8th inning, they'll have Damon Berryhill, Dwight Smith, and Curtis Wilkerson. Ken Daly will be the pitcher. We'll see if Don Zimmer goes to his bench. 1-1 to count. In the dirt. Talking about Zimmer, he has his own physical problems. They say that Don Zimmer's right knee is bothering him so badly he might have to have arthroscopic surgery during the All-Star break.
And Davey Johnson's back. He's trying to stay away from back surgery as well.
2-1 to count to Pete Guerrero. 5-4 Cardinals. 2 out, bottom of the 7th. A chopper to short. Dunston again ready to pull the trigger. And that's it. The Cardinals are out in order for the 3rd time today. And at the end of 7, Cardinals 5, Cubs 4. Here in St. Louis, they're calling them the St. Elsewhere Cardinals. Cox, Matthews, Geronimo Pena, Worrell, Power, and Whaling all ailing. Dennis Walling out for 15. The pitch for a strike to Damon Berryhill, who turns around to hit right-handed. 1 for 3. Fly to left, single to short, fly to right. A base hit to short is when he slammed it off the leg of Ken Hill. Foul back. 5 runs, 9 hits, and 2 errors for the Cardinals. 4 runs, 6 hits, and no errors for the Cubs in the 8th inning. Cardinals got 3 in the 1st inning. Jim Lindeman is now at first base for Pete Guerrero. The Cubs got 1 in the 2nd and 3 in the 3rd to take a lead, only to have the Cardinals get 2 in the bottom of the 6th and lead 5-4. 1-2 the count.
You know, talking about the disabled list, Vinny, we've talked about it before. You could almost make an all-star team of the people that are on the disabled list. Not just a team, but really an all-star team. Hernandez, first baseman Carter from the Mets, Javier from the Pittsburgh Pirates, Mariano Duncan from the Dodgers, Cal Daniels, Lonnie Smith, hitting .324 for the Braves, Andre Dawson, Danny Cox, Todd Burrell. In the American League, you talk about Pudge, Dalton Fisk, Brett or Herbeck at first base, Glenn Hubbard, he's back and just got back in the lineup, Manny Lee and Walt Weiss. How about an outfielder, Canseco, Willie Wilson, and Dave Winfield? I mean, you could make a competitive team just from the disabled list.
1 ball and 2 strikes to Damon Berryhill, and he fouls that one away. Final score, the Giants polish off the Braves 4-0. Kevin Mitchell hit his 18th home run of the year. 1-2 the count. Don Robinson pitched that game with Atlee Hammaker coming in to bail him out. Checks his swing. They're going to look at first. They're going to punch him out. Jerry Crawford
couldn't wait, could he?
Couldn't wait to make the call. He was punching him out before they actually asked him for the word.
He just said, you better ask me.
Because I'm positive.
I know for sure that bat came way around, way out of the strike zone, the fastball up and away. And I'm telling you, Jerry Crawford had him called out before the ball was in the glove.
So Damon Berryhill muttering, looking out in the direction of first base umpire Jerry Crawford. And McClendon will now come up and bat for Dwight Smith. So Lloyd McClendon, right-hand batter. When McClendon joined the Cubs, he gave them a big lift with a 3-run home run. They had lost 5 in a row, and he got him started. He's trying to get him started now, and it's going to drop for a base hit. So McClendon, a 1-out single coming off the bench. He represents a tying run. Of course, the Cubs have to kick themselves in the 7th inning. They had the leadoff man get the base hit. And with the tying run at second, they had Sandberg and Grace coming up, and they came up empty. And just to rub salt in the wound, Grace made the last out, hitting a bullet, but right at Rod Booker. So here is Curtis Wilkerson.
McClendon got 3 hits last night. It's a ball club when you lose a guy like Andre Dawson. It is a team effort. Everybody picks him up. McClendon, of course, being called up and hitting the home run.
That's popped in the air, foul behind the plate. Pena has a play. So Wilkerson fouls out to Tony Pena. 2 down, and Sean Dunston the batter. Now let's see what Whitey does with Dunston, what kind of pitches he uses, with Ken Daly working on him, and the Cardinals leading by 1. Steve Wilson, the pitcher, would follow Sean Dunston. The first thing Whitey does is ring the bullpen and heat it up. Dunston single to left, flied to right, and struck out. Those at bats were against Ken Hill. Dan Quisenberry is down in the pen.
And Wilson going over to get a bat, too. I doubt if he would hit. You certainly would think that Zim would be hitting somebody. But for appearances, so Whitey wouldn't know, Wilson is going to get in the on-deck circle. Chirali was warming up before.
Interesting, Ken Daly started Dunston off with a curveball for a strike. 0-1. Then the fastball, and I don't think that was touched by Pena or the bat. And on a wild pitch, McClendon takes second. And the Cubs, for the second consecutive inning, have the tying run in scoring position.
We talked earlier about Dunston being an undisciplined hitter. Last year, the number of base on balls that he had, 16 base on balls, 8 of them intentionally, and 575 times at bat. He just does not have a disciplined swing. That pitch up over his head.
Oh, he swung at the wild pitch, and now they're changing it. They're calling it a passed ball. 0-2 the count. So a little heat on Tony Pena. Tying run at second and 2 out. Chased it, and down he goes. No run, 1 hit, and for the second consecutive inning, the Cubs lead the tying run in scoring position. 5-4 St. Louis. The Cubs make 2 changes. Lloyd McClendon, who batted for Dwight Smith, takes over in left field, and Mitch Webster, who had been in left field, moves over to right. And we go to the bottom of the 8th inning. 5-4 Cardinals, and there's a strike to Pendleton. Terry Pendleton hit a 2-run home run, single to left, grounded to short. 2 for 3. One ball, 1 strike. The Cardinals trying to snap a 5-game losing streak. Fastball. In the 9th inning, the Cubs are due to have their pitcher, Wilson, followed by DeCenzo and Webster. Ryan Sandberg would be the 4th hitter for Don Zimmer if he can get that far in the 9th. Cubs have beaten the Cardinals all 3 previous meetings. One and 2 in the dirt to the screen. 2 balls, 2 strikes. We'd like to welcome all you good folks who've been watching the Giants in Atlanta, with the Giants winning 4-0. Welcome to the Cardinal-Cub rivalry, and the Cardinals in a seesaw game leading 5-4, and we're in the bottom of the 8th inning. Steve Wilson pitching to Terry Pendleton. Fastball hit down the line, foul and out of play. I'm Vin Scully along with Tom Seaver. It's a game that saw the Cardinals score 3 in the first. The Cubs with 1 in the second and 3 of their own in the third to take a 4-3 lead. And the Cardinals with 2 in the bottom of the 6th turn it back around in their favor, 5-4. Two balls, 2 strikes. Foul back.
You just have to look at the line on young Steve Wilson to see how they're using him. They had a 2-0 record coming into today's game with a 2.57 ERA. This is his 12th game, and he has pitched 14 innings. Don Zimmer and Dick Pohl, the pitching coach for the Chicago Cubs, bringing him along slowly, spotting him in certain situations that they feel would be most beneficial for him.
That involved trade between Chicago and Texas will take a long time before any true analysis. Jamie Moyer, Rafael Palmeiro, etc. doing well for Texas, and the Cubs, well, they're in first place. Can't beat that.
Well, they wouldn't be in first place if they didn't have the left-hander down there in the bullpen that they have, Mitch Williams. I mean, they've beaten the Cards 3 times so far this year. Mitch Williams has saved all 3 games, 14 saves that he does have on the season.
High foul behind the plate. Berryhill takes a look and realizes no play, and it's back in amongst the customers. 44,719 paid. Over 45,000 here to see a renewal of this great rivalry between Chicago and St. Louis. Oakland leading Cleveland 3-0, top of the 4th inning. 2-2. Ball 3. During the Cubs' next homestand, which begins Monday the 5th, they'll play 4 with the Mets, 4 with the Cardinals. Now that's going to be quite an 8-game homestand for the Cubs. They will be put to the test, as will the Mets and Cardinals in Wrigley Field. High foul off to the right and well back into the crowd. 3-2 the count to Terry Pendleton.
You don't know what Zimmer's going to do, but you try to guess, of course, what an opposing manager or what a manager might do. It's one of the interesting things about baseball, especially not having the DH in this league. Facing Pendleton and then Brunansky, the right-hander on deck. Booker, a left-handed hitter, but only 1 at-bat at the major league level this year. And then Pena in the number 8 spot, a right-hand hitter. And then, of course, the pitcher's position. So what do? Here, do you go get Giraldi to face Brunansky?
Fouled away.
Pendleton, of course, is making a difference because he's a switch hitter, one of the 5 switch hitters that started in the lineup for St. Louis today. Oquendo has been replaced by Booker.
When you think about possibilities, in the 9th inning, the first move that Zimmer will have to make will be a hitter for Wilson against the left-hander Ken Daly, and he has several right-handed bats. Fastball hit into right center field, base hit. DeCenzo over to cut it off, and Pendleton holding with his 3rd hit of the day. 2 singles and a 2-run home run. And the batter will be Tom Brunansky. Available to Zimmer as pinch hitters, right-handed Darren Jackson, Rick Rona, Domingo Ramos, and Vance Law. And he's going to make a change right now. Domingo Ramos will take over for Sean Dunston at shortstop. And since Dunston made the last out, that's a 2-for-1 switch. So we'll put Giraldi in Dunston's spot, put Ramos in the pitcher's spot, and now we know who's leading off in the 9th inning. It'll be Domingo Ramos. So Steve Wilson gives up the base hit to Pendleton, and that will bring in Calvin Schiraldi. And if you're keeping score, he'll go in Dunstan's spot.
And reflecting back on the trade, Vinny, the Palmeiro trade and the Mitch Williams trade, one of the things that you hear in baseball is that a good trade is when both teams are happy, when both teams are satisfied. Certainly the Texas Rangers, with getting a fine left-handed hitter, have got to be absolutely ecstatic the way that Palmeiro is playing. But this ball club, the Chicago Cubs, were killed by not having a bullpen, not a closer last year. And they had to have a Mitch Williams. They had to have it, or else they would no way would they be competitive.
It's interesting how things have changed. In the old days, when one team made a trade with another team, they were really trying to outskin each other. I mean, the only delight was, boy, did we pull one over on them. But not anymore.
I don't think so much anymore, because you can't go back to the well anymore. If one of the owners or one of the general managers thinks that, well, this team has really burned me, they're not going to go back to that well. They'll go someplace else and do their business. That's really the way to run the business.
There's Mitch Williams, who summed up his style of pitching. I will forever remember it. I pitch as if my hair is on fire. He was so wild the other day in a game that he saved that Don Zimmer and every member of the Cubs in the dugout put on batting helmets. To say the always exciting Mitch Williams would be an understatement. By the way, we have a moment. This telecast is presented by authority of Major League Baseball and may not be reproduced or retransmitted in any form without the express written consent of Major League Baseball. Calvin Schiraldi will now go head-to-head with Tom Brunansky. So Schiraldi is given a heavy responsibility to try and keep the Cardinals quiet. Calvin, as you can see, with 4 saves after spending most of the year in the starting rotation last year and then moving to the bullpen late in the season. Originally with the New York Mets, then with the Boston Red Sox. Came to the Cubs with Al Nipper for Lee Smith.
Well, see, he was in the bullpen in Boston, and they figured that the Cubs got him over here and tried to make a starter out of him. His 4.3 ERA just does not have enough variety of pitches, I don't believe, to be a starting pitcher. He was 9-13 last year, but a good right-handed closer.
Check swing on a breaking ball, dribbled to Grace, who will come to Brunansky while keeping an eye on Pendleton. So Brunansky rolls to first. Pendleton moves up a notch to second. Cardinals lead 5-4. And now Rod Booker will be coming up to replace Jose Oquendo. Oquendo had grounded out, walked, robbed of a hit by Dunston, and had to leave with indigestion. So Booker, who's been in the Cardinal organization and up with them each of the last 2 years. Ball 1. Booker from Los Angeles, and his contract purchased almost 6 years ago from the Minnesota Twins.
There goes the call for the big boy and the Chicago Cub bullpen.
Hit foul off third, down the line and out of play.
Dick Pohl just waved his left hand down there. Now let's see who that is. It doesn't look like Williams, though, does it?
It's Pat Perry, who at one time pitched here in St. Louis. One ball and one strike. Popped in the air, foul off to the left of the plate. Berryhill along with Wilkerson, and it is Berryhill. Crowd making a lot of noise, and even though they were in front of their own dugout, you would think they would hear someone direct traffic. But with a crowd of over 45,000 in a definite holiday frame of mind, it's tough to hear. 2 down. Tony Pena, with first base open, grounded out, fly to left, and then singled in a run in the 6th inning. His base hit knocking in what has turned out to be the go-ahead run. 4-1.
This can be one of the hottest ballparks, Vinny, too, in the National League. This artificial surface, I mean, it can get smoking here during the summer. Cardinals don't have they have one more Saturday day game, and then it's night games Saturday from then on. They only play Sunday day games here, but with the turf, you can get temperatures in the 150-degree level out there, and it's just like a steam bath here in the Midwest once you get into the middle of July and hot August.
If you're wondering why the Cubs are working on Tony Pena, it's the presence of the on-deck hitter. If they put Pena aboard, then you have Milt Thompson, who's hitting .298, and he's out on deck. 1-1 to count to Tony Pena. Fastball punched to Grace, and that's it. So they leave Pendleton at second base, and at the end of 8, the Cardinals 5, the Cubs 4. Ramos, DeCenzo, and Webster due up in the 9th inning for Chicago. We talked about him a little while ago, and had they been ready, well, you could bet the house he would be in there today. Todd Worrell, who is eligible to come off the disabled list, has a groin problem, and he's still not quite ready. He threw yesterday, Mike Rourke watching him, but he will not come in a spot that would almost cry for him for Whitey Herzog. So Herzog sticks with Ken Daly, and down in the bullpen, Dan Quisenberry will throw back at him.
One of the problems that Jimmy Leland has had in Pittsburgh, he lost his closer, and Jimmy Gott, his #1 guy last night. The Pirates going ahead of the Mets in 13 innings, I believe it was, 2-1, and then all of a sudden in the bottom of the 13th, Magadan hits a 2-run home run. They win 3-2. That closer is so important. Worrell, a 1.45 ERA, 6 saves for St. Louis, but of no use to Whitey Herzog here today.
Well, let's see about the 9th now. 5-4 Cardinals. Domingo Ramos to lead it off, hitting .265. Daly has worked an inning and a third, striking out 2 of the hitters he has faced. He's had to pitch to 5 hitters. He has given up 1 hit. That was the single to Lloyd McClendon. The Cubs frustrated. They left the tying run at second base in the 7th inning and again in the 8th. 1 ball and 1 strike. Daly, interestingly enough, has been hit more by left-handers than right-handers. Curveball is hit to the left to short. Ozzy's on it. 1 out. One down in the 9th, and Doug DeCenzo, a switch hitter, coming up, and he'll bat right-handed. Flied to left and struck out, flied to center and singled. His single was against Ken Hill. He was the last batter that Ken Hill faced. And that's popped in the air to center. Willie McGee is there. 2 down. So the Cardinals are 1 out away from snapping a 5-game losing streak. The Cubs had won 7 out of 10. They began the day 2 games in front of Montreal and 5 in front of the Cardinals. And here is Mitch Webster. And he hits a high drive into deep left field. Back goes Coleman. She's gone.
That's the first home run that Mitch Webster has hit this year, and what a time to hit it. 2 out in the 9th inning to get the game even 5-5. And the batter is Ryne Sandberg. Ball 1 for Ken Daly. That would be the second home run he has allowed this year. So Webster hits it out, and we're all tied up. Strike 1-1.
The one place you don't want to throw the ball, up where somebody can get it into the air with a couple of outs or 1 run down. Mitch Webster, very happy Chicago Cubby, that's for sure. The ball's got to stay down when you've got 2 outs and a 1-run lead.
It is certainly an unlikely weapon here in Busch Stadium, St. Louis. And yet today we've had 2 home runs to the opposite field by Terry Pendleton in the first inning, and then that jolt by Mitch Webster. 5-5 in the 9th inning. 1 ball and 2 strikes to Ryne Sandberg. 2-2. Way back at the start of the game, the very first picture you saw in the game of the week was Webster's dictionary, and we talked about how he defined rival. And Webster has summed up rival again today. Ground ball to the left of Ozzie Smith. Juggles, comes up with it. Got him. One run, 1 hit. You talk about an 11th hour reprieve. It's called Webster. And we're even at
1-run lead. Keep the ball down in the strike zone. Looks like Daly just goosed the ball, and you couldn't hit the crosshairs if you put them up there any better than that. Right down Broadway. And Mitch Webster says, hold on here, I'll take care of this one. The Cubbies tie it up. Now look at Whitey. He is not saying, isn't it a lovely day to stay at the ballpark for a couple of more innings, I'll tell you that. Hot fudge Sundays.
And we're in the bottom of the 9th. Milt Thompson batting for Ken Daly against Calvin Schiraldi. 1 ball, 1 strike. It has always been a great rivalry. When you boil what has happened since 1900, the Cubs have won 51% of the games and the Cardinals 49%. And they have blistered each other down through the years. 1-2 the count. Thompson, who did such a great job playing for Willie McGee, now in there hitting against Calvin Schiraldi. So by Lucky and Wilson, Hill, Costello, and Daly, they have nothing to do with it. Popped in the air to left field. McClendon coming up as Ramos goes out, and McClendon almost ran out from under it. McClendon and Ramos just coming into the game, neither having the feel for it. Always the threat of a collision. And Lloyd could hear footsteps and almost overran the ball. 1 down.
The sun becoming a factor here at Busch Stadium too, Vinny. It's about almost closing in on 4:30, 4:22 now, so you'll get some shadows and you'll get the sun in those outfielders' eyes, and some wind at the top of the stadium as well.
Vince Coleman is 0 for 4, grounded out twice, flied to left, flied to center, and he's followed by Willie McGee. In there for the Cardinals. They blew a 3-0 lead. The Cubs had a 4-3 lead. The Cardinals came back to take a 5-4 lead, and the Cubs have tied them 5-5, much to the delight of this big crowd. They're having a ball. Fastball missed. Ball 2.
You know, a lot of people around the country, as we talked about in the pregame show, they know about the Yankees and the Red Sox and the Giants and the Dodgers. A lot of people on the coast of this country don't realize how big a rivalry this Chicago-St. Louis one really is.
A drive to left center, and DeCenzo is there. So what the Cubs have done keep Vince Coleman off the base paths. He is 0 for 5. And remember, he is 22 for 22 in stolen bases. If he gets aboard, it's almost a cinch he's at second. And the batter is Willie McGee. Double to left and then 3 ground balls. So McGee is 1 for 4. Strike. 0-1. So the Cardinals got a first inning home run. The Cubs got a 9th inning home run, and we're in the bottom of the 9th. Fouled away. Wilkerson shortening up in front of the bag, but now with 2 strikes on McGee, Curtis goes back to a normal position. Grace guarding the chalk deep at first. 0-2. McGee followed by Ozzie Smith. 1-2. Slow and high. Off-speed breaking ball. 2-2 to McGee.
Anytime you get into overtime and here in the bottom of the 9th, a tie ball game, you think home run, just the way Webster was when he was up in the top of the inning. Calvin 4 home runs in 34 innings pitched for Chicago.
Now McGee, should he get aboard, and he doesn't walk very much, only 7 times in over 100 at bat. He has stolen 6 out of 9 if he gets aboard. And he hits one off the glove of Schiraldi, deflected to Sandberg. They get him. Otherwise, that might have gone up the middle. 1-4-3. 5-5. Chicago and St. Louis, 295 miles apart and 5 games in the standings. The Chicago Cubs of 1989 are center stage in the Windy City. And let's think of what's taken place in the NFL. The Bears lost the NFC title game. In the NHL, the Blackhawks lost in a final game in the Final Four. In the NCAA, Illinois lost in the Final Four. In the NBA, the Chicago Bulls eliminated last night by the Detroit Pistons. So the stage belongs to the Chicago Cubs. They're making the most of it. They're in first place.
Making the most of it. A lot of people happy. You hear a lot of baseball fans, well, thank God the basketball's out of the way. Thank God the football's out of the way. Don't look around the corner. They've gone to camp, those football players. It never ends.
Frank DePino pitching to Mark Grace. DePino, the 4th Cardinal pitcher. Now back 0-1. So it's been Hill, Costello, Daly, and DePino. And of course, Daly is the one who feels that he let it get away. DePino was with the Cubs for the last 2.5 years and was signed by the Cardinals as a free agent. DePino had been with Houston since '82, then came to the Cubs in '86, and like several others before him, notably Bruce Sutter, Lou Brock, he has worn both uniforms in the great rivalry. 1 down. Milt Thompson is now in center field. If you're keeping score, Thompson batted for Daly, so he'll stay in the game in center, batting 9th. Since Willie McGee made the last out, put Frank DePino in McGee's spot. DePino pitching to Damon Berryhill. Flied to left, singled, flied to right, struck out. Scored a run. Shot, a smothering stop by Pendleton to get him. So Berryhill losing a possible base hit on a dazzler by Terry Pendleton. And the batter will be Lloyd McClendon, but Whitey Herzog is going to make a switch. And he will bring in Dan Quisenberry.
Great play by Pendleton, diving to his left. Always known to be an outstanding defensive third baseman. Those 12 errors last year A year in which he suffered from physical problems. He had shoulder problems, hamstring. And he had arthroscopic surgery on his knee, but you can see there he is healthy again this year. 6 errors so far this season, but a spectacular play right there, robbing Berryhill of a base hit.
So 2 down in the 10th inning, and Whitey Herzog will bring in Dan Quisenberry to pitch to Lloyd McClendon. So the Cardinals have used Hill, Costello, Daly, DePino, and now Quisenberry. And you can't help but wonder what kind of a game you would have between the Cardinals and the Oakland A's with Whitey Herzog dealing to Tony La Russa.
Those guys down there selling peanuts and hot dogs and soft drinks would love it, wouldn't they?
Boy, they would be maneuvering.
They'd say, hey, let's go. Get them now while they last. We're going to be here a while. We're going to have some changes made and some pitchers changes. Amazing thing about the Oakland A's, when they use 4 or more pitchers, it's usually in a winning effort.
The veteran Dan Quisenberry coming out of the pen. Quisenberry's career began in Waterloo way back in 1975. He first came up to Kansas City in 1979 and stayed with Kansas City until last year. He was released on the 4th of July by Kansas City and signed with the Cardinals 10 days later.
Of course, one of the most unusual deliveries in Major League Baseball. Quisenberry and Kent Tekulve, the 2 pitchers known for the underhand delivery. One of the things to look for here is you see Quiz warm up or throw here during the game. His shoulders, the plane of his shoulders are exactly the same as if he were throwing underhand. Only it's just like throwing in a mirror. Everything is reversed here. Left-hand hitters do much better against a Quiz or a Tekulve than the right-hand hitters.
Well, Lloyd McClendon had 3 for 3 last night, then singled as a pinch hitter in the 8th inning and takes a strike. 0-1. In extra inning games, the Cubs have only been in 2 prior to today. They've split them. The Cardinals are in their 8th extra inning game, and they've won 5 of the previous 7. 1-1. When the Cardinals bat in the bottom of the 10th inning, Ozzie Smith, Jim Lindeman, and Terry Pendleton. Remember, Guerrero went out for Lindeman. Chopper foul, and the count 1-2. Curtis Wilkerson, the third baseman, on deck. For the spectator, this has been a perfect game, a seesaw game, a lot of action, home runs, extra base hits, dazzling defensive plays, and now extra innings. The chopper wide of first, backhanded by Lindeman, overhands to Quisenberry, and he can't hold it. Backed up by Pena. A low throw to first. Tough ball for Quisenberry to handle coming over, and they're going to give Lindeman the error, understandably so. Normally, you try to hang the ball over the bag for the pitcher up around his eyes. Instead, Lindeman kind of wristed it and threw a sinker.
Probably had his weight going away from the bag and throwing back across his body. A tough play for a first baseman. Quiz there in plenty of time. You see McClendon go by the bag and make a break for second. He had to get back. Tony Pena had a play on him. He made an effort to go towards second base, and if you do that, your intent to go to second, you better get back to the bag if you don't go.
Curtis Wilkerson, a switch hitter. Gary Varsho comes out on deck. So Varsho would bat for Calvin Schiraldi if given the opportunity. Pat Perry throwing in the Cub bullpen. And we'll see just how big that error was as Wilkerson checks in, hitting left-handed. Wilkerson would appear to be a much better hitter from this side of the plate. Today he is 0 for 4.
was a new pitch from Quisenberry. Came back up top there. I haven't seen him do that very often. Not the other end delivery, yeah. Against his left-handed, yeah. This is kind of unusual. Get the arm up. Yeah. Let's look at this. Well, he stands up. He got there, but he stood up more. He didn't bend the upper torso to the right as much. Almost as if he's trying to throw a normal sidearm delivery.
0-1. There goes the runner on a pitch out, and Pena's throw is not held on by Ozzie Smith, and it appeared as if McClendon had the base stolen anyway.
Now in the pregame show, Don Zimmer says we'll try to eke out a run any way we can. This is a Cub team that pulled a squeeze bunt last night. They hit and run, they steal, and they tried a steal of home as well. Zim will do anything. It's also a ball club. When Zim came over here, they had the steal sign, and a lot of players had a green light on this ball club, and they wouldn't steal. They wouldn't steal until the 4th or 5th time a pitch was made. Finally, Zim put in, says, must steal. You must go on this pitch. He has made this club a running ball club.
1 ball and 1 strike the count to Curtis Wilkerson. Ball 2. That gets behind Pena, but holding at second base is McClendon. As we mentioned at the very start of the game, one of the surprises in a most surprising couple of months, the fact that the Cubs have more stolen bases than the Cardinals, and by far. The Cardinals came into the game with 46 stolen bases, and they have not tried to steal one. Meanwhile, the Cubs pick up a stolen base twice today to give them 60. 2-1 to count to Curtis Wilkerson.
And as soon as McClendon got to second base, Mitch Williams got up in the Chicago bullpen. You know, that man got to scoring position. Bingo, the big boy gets up.
They've had a runner in scoring position in the 7th, 8th, and now here in the 10th. And of course, they had that dramatic 2-out home run in the 9th to tie it. 2-1. Ground ball to first. Lindemann takes it to the bag, and the top of the 10th is in the books. No runs, no hits, 1 error, a man left. And at the end of 9 1/2, a 5-5 tie. French Open continues tomorrow. Exciting match play. Steffi Graf, Mats Wilander defending their titles against the world's great tennis players, including Andre Agassi. That's tomorrow, the French Open on NBC Sports. Ozzie Smith, Jim Lindemann, and Terry Pendleton against Calvin Schiraldi. Wilkerson up inside the bag at third. Ball 1. Ozzie grounded out in single, fouled out, and flied out. Grace has shortened up, but he's still back of the bag, guarding the line. Ball 2.
How many home runs does Kevin Mitchell have?
18.
Now that the lineup that the Cardinals have in right now, do you know how many they have so far this year?
Not
18. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
10 home runs. And 3-0 to count Ozzie Smith. Schiraldi now certainly doesn't walk a rabbit. And a strike. 3-1. Ozzie Smith has stolen 7 out of 9. And he walked him. The Cub pitchers have only walked 2. Mike Bilecki walked Oquendo in the 4th inning. And now Schiraldi walks Smith, opening up the 10th. So the heat will be on the Cub infield now as Ozzie Smith held on by Mark Grace. And the batter, Jim Lindemann.
He's only been up 29 times. You wonder what Whitey's going to do here.
Big lead by Ozzie, but the bunt down to Grace. He will tag Lindemann, and on the sacrifice, Ozzie Smith takes second. I thought he might wait to see if Ozzie could try and steal, and you know, Ozzie had both feet on the rug when that pitch was made.
I was kind of surprised. I figured something might happen there. One of the complaints has been that the Cardinals getting runners to scoring position and then having real bad pitch selection and what to swing at. Johnny Lewis, the hitting instructor the hitting coach for the St. Louis Cardinals, talking that when the Cardinals have been getting runners to third base with less than 2 outs, they're going to walk Pendleton, or runners in scoring position at second. They really have had bad pitch selection, which to swing at. Really swinging at pitches out of the strike zone, not swinging at a pitch they could drive to the outfield with, say, 1 out and a runner on third base. Just not very intelligent hitting.
First and second in a moment with 1 out, and Tom Brunansky will be coming up. So Ozzie Smith walks and is sacrificed to second. Pendleton gets the intentional walk, and Brunansky followed by Rod Booker. Tom Brunansky with Mitch Williams in the pen. Brunansky has popped up, flied to left, doubled on a 3-0 pitch. He lined one off the left field wall 383 feet away, and then last time up grounded out. So the Cardinals trying to win it with 2 on, 1 out in the 10th in a 5-5 tie. Right. 0-1.
We're talking about the Cardinals and the double plays, 45 double plays that they have grounded into, and you would think that Brunansky might be the biggest culprit. Yet he has only grounded into 3. Pendleton has grounded into 8.
0-1. Fastball hit in the air, foul down the right field line and back into the seats, out of play. 0-2 the count to Tom Brunansky as Calvin Schiraldi goes right after him. With Ozzie Smith at second with his 7 stolen bases. Terry Pendleton also runs well. He's stolen 5 out of 6. And Schiraldi has to really watch both of them. And he backed off the rubber. No balls and 2 strikes to Brunansky. Low. One thing when you have runners like Ozzie Smith and Pendleton, if you're the third baseman, even though you have a Brunansky at the plate, you can't afford to play deep. So that shortens up Wilkerson at third because he can't open the door. Ozzie Smith otherwise might come right down there.
Also keeping an eye on Ozzie too. Right. He has a half an eye towards second base, looking for movement from the white uniform from second base.
Tough position under the circumstances. 1 ball and 2 strikes. Curveball hit in the air to center, and DeCenzo coming in a hurry, base hit. Ozzie Smith will stop at third because they thought the ball should have been caught. And the bases are loaded with 1 out. DeCenzo got a late start. I think Doug thought the ball was hit harder than it was. Then when he realized he couldn't catch it, he had to worry about an AstroTurf hop where it would go over his head.
He made a good play on stopping the ball. That's one of the tragic things can happen on artificial surfaces. The ball can bounce out over your head. Mitch Williams is certainly going to come into this spot. Popeye's going to bring him in, but I think that DeCenzo was fooled exactly right, Benny. The ball hit a big swing, but the ball hit on the end of the bat. So you get the big swing, but nothing really comes out. He just got a late break coming in. And you will wonder the decision whether Zim would bring his big left-hander in. There's really no choice. Now he has to.
He's going to make the best out of a tough situation. He will make a 2-for-1 switch. Since Wilkerson made the last out in the top of the 10th inning, he will put Mitch Williams in Wilkerson's spot. Then he will put Vance Law at third base. And that would mean Law, should there be an 11th inning, would lead off. Well, you talk about drama. This game has had everything. And now, on a somewhat misjudged fly ball, You not only have the bases loaded and one out, but you have the guy who pitches in his own words, as if his hair is on fire, Mitch Williams, the most colorful relief pitcher to come along in quite a while.
I have a feeling I'm going to be hearing that phrase quite a few times. It's pitching as if my hair is on fire.
Unreal.
I think that got into your notebook. You like that one, huh?
One of the more memorable Cardinal relief pitchers still works here in St. Louis, Al Raboski, the mad Hungarian who used to take walks behind the mound and talk to himself. And Mitch Williams has become an extremely colorful relief pitcher.
Isn't it odd that they're both left-handed?
Never mind.
Huh? One of the announcers is left-handed.
I refuse to accept that observation. So the bases are loaded. Rod Booker is due to be the batter. And Tom Pagnozzi, the backup catcher, will come up and hit for Booker. So Tom Pagnozzi will be the batter.
Well, you're talking about two managers that are really pulling some strings. I'm down to one player left for the Cardinals. One pitcher left for the Chicago Cubs.
Here's the thing about Mitch Williams that makes it so wild, and you can look at Whitey's scorecard with all kinds of notations on it, how the defense sets up against various hitters. Mitch Williams in 26 innings has given up 25 hits and 22 walks. He pitches out of the stretch all the time. However, with one out and the bases loaded, he also has struck out more than innings pitched. He has struck out 30. And he goes head-to-head with Pagnozzi. Pagnozzi has struck out maybe 20% of the time, a little less than that. Pagnozzi followed by Pena. Ozzie Smith, the winning run 90 feet away. The infield is up, the outfield is shallow, and here we go. Swung on and fouled away. 0-1.
You know, a high strikeout ratio, like you say, Vinny, 30 strikeouts in 26 innings pitched, but a lot of walks, a lot of base hits. And opponents are hitting 260 off of Mitch Williams. And that's a pretty good clip to hit your number one guy, your closer, out of the bullpen.
0-1. See that follow through as he winds up with his back to the hitter, tumbling off the mound. It's been used before like a man falling out of a tree. 1 ball and 1 strike. Fly ball to right field down the line. Going back is Webster. Even if he catches it, the game is over. Ozzie Smith tags up and scores. The St. Louis Cardinals win a thriller in the 10th inning to snap a 5-game losing streak. The Cardinals are 3-0 in extra inning victories on NBC's Game of the Week. They've beaten the Mets, the Dodgers, and now the Cubs in overtime. 5 runs, 8 hits, and no errors for the losing Cubs. 6-11-3 for the winning Cardinals. Calvin Schiraldi, who walked Ozzie Smith, is the losing